Long time ago, mysterious underground dungeons began to appear worldwide. These dungeons were filled with unimaginable entities, including monsters that could match the military's firepower. They also contained magic stones, a more efficient energy source than fossil fuels, and a game-like system that has become a reality. Defeating monsters earns experience points, and leveling up enhances one's status. Meeting certain criteria also grants a skill. The story begins with Rin Amin battling goblins on the 15th floor of a D-rank Uanagi dungeon. The goblins are at level 120, while Rin is at level 190, making it look like the goblins are moving slowly for Rin, allowing him to easily cut through them. After a while, he defeats all the goblins, hears a beep in his mind, and gains experience points, raising his level by 1. Rin checks his status board and reviews his stats. He feels he's making progress in leveling up, but it's not enough compared to top-class adventurers with levels over 100k. Rin realizes it's ambitious for him to catch up with those who started 20 years ago, as he only began a year ago. Clearing the Uanagi dungeons grants 5 levels. The structure of almost all the dungeons is generally the same, with a single entrance on the surface leading to a recall point, which has a large space and a gate into the dungeon. Each dungeon happens to have a boss on the lowest floor. Upon defeating the boss and clearing the dungeon, adventurers receive level ups and other rewards. After the boss is defeated, the adventurer returns to the recall point and exits the dungeon. The difficulty of a dungeon varies, and level up rewards are not affected by the number of people in the dungeon, at the same time making everyone receive their own separate rewards. This leads adventurers to often form parties to tackle challenging dungeons together. Repeatedly killing monsters in recursion dungeons is an efficient way to level up, but it's not possible because after challenging a dungeon, one has to wait a week to challenge any dungeon again. Since the dungeons appeared 2 decades ago, humanity has developed an information-gathering system from challenging dungeons, which is shared worldwide. Rin has a unique skill called dungeon teleportation, and he's been waiting for a long time to upgrade this unique skill to level 10. When Rin was young, monsters that only appeared in the dungeon surfaced outside, causing an emergency. The city was in chaos, with everyone fleeing for their lives and seeking adventurers. Rin and his sister were about to be attacked by a monster, but a heroic adventurer saved them. Rin admired that adventurer and, after finishing high school, earned the right to become an adventurer himself. However, those who wish to become adventurers must prove themselves because there's only a 10% chance of obtaining a status board and some skills. When Rin first opened his status board, he received 2 skills, body strengthening and dungeon teleportation. Dungeon teleportation was a rare skill because no one else in the world had it. Everyone wanted Rin to join their party or guild, but an adventurer named Kazami Shin invited Rin to join their guild with the goal of becoming the best in the world using their unique skills. Rin accepted the invitation. Rin's dungeon teleportation was initially at level 1, with a range of only 5 meters and a casting time of 10 seconds. Only Rin could be teleported, making the skill useless for battles. Meanwhile, Kazami had a unique skill, Lightning Strike, which doesn't require EXP and has impressive destructive power. The other party members also had their own unique skills. Before long, rumors started circulating about Rin being useless. Kazami encouraged Rin not to take the rumors to heart. One day, Rin decides to leave the guild. When he goes to tell Kazami, he overhears Kazami talking with another party member. Kazami says he won't kick Rin out because they're going to be one of the strongest groups in the future. He wants Rin to quit on his own to avoid damaging the guild's image. Rin is shocked by this but doesn't blame them because he knows his skill is indeed useless. The next day, Rin quits the guild, leading him to always solo in dungeons. Despite everyone treating Rin like a loser, he never gives up and believes his skill isn't useless at all. Rin decides to upgrade his dungeon teleportation skill to level 10, hoping it will make him much stronger. After defeating a dungeon boss for the 3rd time, Rin finally levels his dungeon teleportation skill to level 10. The skill's conditions are modified, and he gains the ability to teleport within the dungeon he's in and to any dungeon he's been in before. Rin is slightly disappointed because this isn't what he was hoping for. A light glows in Rin, signaling his return to the recall point. Rin collects the magic stones and heads home. On his way, he sees the E-rank Shin dungeon, his first dungeon as a beginner. Every adventurer only goes into this dungeon a few times because clearing it only grants 1 level up. Rin decides to stop at the dungeon. He goes to the receptionist and shows her his adventurer card, which records his age, name, and the dungeons he's challenged. At the recall point, Rin tries to enter the dungeon, but the gate doesn't respond. Rin gets an idea and uses his dungeon teleportation skill to enter the dungeon. He surprisingly enters the gate using his skill but thinks he won't be able to level up. However, he's wrong. After defeating the dungeon boss, he levels up. Rin is overjoyed. In his excitement, he challenges the Shin dungeon multiple times and levels up 9 times in total. He continues leveling up until sunset, and then heads home. As he slowly opens the door, he finds his sister standing there. Rin apologizes for being late, and they start having dinner. While eating, they chat, and Rin decides not to tell her about his teleportation ability to avoid causing trouble. The next day, Rin identifies the dungeons he can challenge at his level and estimates the levels he can gain. Rin decides to go to the Umami dungeon, which is unpopular among adventurers because it's a long dungeon and offers fewer resources. After about 3 hours, he reaches the final boss, defeats it, collects the magic stones, and clears the dungeon 2 more times. Rin's unique skill, once deemed useless, has finally become a cheat skill. Back at home, Rin is astonished to find that he's leveled up from 192 to 224 in just a single day. Unable to upgrade his teleport level, Rin decides to use his skill points to upgrade his item box instead. This means Rin won't have to carry materials anymore. For the next 4 days, Rin continues to clear the Umagi dungeon, resulting in a significant level increase 140 levels in just 4 days. However, one day, Rin finds the dungeon crowded with adventurers, as it's the weekend. Rin decides to be cautious, knowing that if the world learns about his dungeon teleportation, a cheat skill, it could cause trouble. He's clearly in a dungeon very quickly. On his 6th run, Rin notices some adventurers fleeing from a monster and hears a girl calling for help. Using his high-speed movement, Rin finds the girl surrounded by monsters. Thinking she's a magic-type adventurer, Rin decides to help her. He defeats all the monsters and rescues her. The girl, amazed by Rin, thanks him for saving her. Rin asks if she's alright and if she's hurt, but she blushes and assures him that she's fine. Rin misinterprets her reaction and wonders if she dislikes him that much. He apologizes, thinking she might have been upset, but she denies it, bows, and thanks Rin again. She introduces herself as Kasai Yui, a 3rd-year student. Yui tells Rin that she's been adventuring in the dungeon since she was 17, a rule that Rin wasn't able to benefit from as it was implemented later. Rin asks why she's alone in the dungeon. He guesses that she might have joined a party at the last minute and entered the dungeon with them. But when the adventurers saw packs of grey wolves, they abandoned her as bait and ran away. It turns out that Rin's guess is completely correct. Rin suggests that Yui follow him for her safety. After a while, they reach the final boss room. Yui questions if they're really going to challenge the boss, to which Rin replies that doing so will allow them to return to the recall point much faster. Rin asks if she has a problem with this, but Yui says she actually wants to thank him for helping her. She questions if just the 2 of them are really going to fight the boss, given that Rin just fought a monster. Rin strikes a Riz pose and assures her not to worry. Yui asks who he is, and Rin realizes he hasn't introduced himself yet. He tells her his name, Amain Rin. Yui decides to call him Rin because she already knows someone named Amain and asks Rin to call her Yui. While they're talking, the Umami dungeon boss, Harpy, attacks, but Rin kills her instantly. Yui is so surprised that she starts clapping, her eyes sparkling. The dungeon is cleared again, and Rin reaches level 399. Yui thanks Rin because she's now at level 85. Rin realizes that she entered the dungeon with the basic level requirements, so he thought Yui was a magic type. But when he asks if Yui is a healer, she confirms it. There are various types of adventurers, but healers are rare, so many people invite them even if the healer is at a low level. Rin collects the magic stone and finally makes it back to the recall point. At the recall point, Rin and Yui see the party that teamed up with Yui. They're talking about Yui, and one of them sees Yui safe. Rin asks Yui to stay behind him. One of the party members is curious about how Yui managed to survive the monsters, but another member interrupts him and greets Yui. Rin observes Yui, who appears very frightened. The man claims they were worried about her and attempts to approach her. Rin intervenes, shouting at them to keep their distance. The adventurer inquires about Rin's identity, but Rin dismisses it as irrelevant, revealing that he learned from Yui that they used her as bait and fled from a pack of wolves. Rin declares his intention to report everything to the dungeon manager. Their leader unsheathes his sword and opts for silence, urging his teammates to assist him. Rin decides to confront them, which angers their leader. Rin surmises that they are of a lower level than him because they fled from a pack of grey wolves, which he defeated with ease. Rin chooses to fight them unarmed. They ridicule Rin, calling him an idiot if he believes he can take on all 4 of them. But Rin retorts that if Yui is unharmed, then someone must have defeated those monsters, suggesting that they might have an idea of who that was. They become enraged, and their magic caster attacks Rin with a fireball. but Rin deflects it barehanded and proceeds to attack their tanker. The tanker believes he can withstand Rin's attack, but Rin's punch pierces his shield and knocks him out. Their leader questions if Rin is merely mocking them, but Rin denies it, stating it's not his style, and proceeds to attack and knock him down as well. Rin asks the magic caster if she wishes to continue fighting, but she concedes defeat. They later exit the dungeon and are handed over to the police, but discussions with the officials and police take a considerable amount of time. As they walk, Yui inquires about the adventurer's fate. Rin responds that he's unsure, but according to the officials, they'll face severe punishment. Rin and Yui arrive at the train station, where Rin thanks Yui again, acknowledging that if he hadn't been there to help, she might have died. Rin advises her to be prepared before entering a dungeon and to choose her teammates wisely. In response, Yui asks for Rin's contact information, expressing her desire to meet a trustworthy adventurer and repay him for his help. Rin shares his contact information with her, and she thanks Rin enthusiastically. Rin blushes, admitting he hasn't seen a girl smile in a while. She departs, and on the train, Rin feels down because he's still at level 399, so he decides to return to the dungeon and reach level 400. Later at home, he checks his SP and decides to level up his dungeon teleportation skill. After upgrading, his casting range is modified from 20 meters to 50 meters. Despite the 2.5 times increase in casting range, Rin fears it might still be useless. However, he comes up with an idea, and the next day, he returns to the Umami dungeon. He decides to try teleporting between floors using dungeon teleportation. It usually takes minutes to reach the next floor, but if he can use his skill to get there, his runs could become much faster. He wasn't able to do this before due to his limited range, but now it might work. He estimates about 10 meters between each floor and decides to set teleportation to 10 meters. Rin's strategy works, and he successfully teleports to the second floor of the Umami dungeon using his dungeon teleportation skill. He contemplates going for a 50-meter teleportation next, which would allow him to skip 5 floors at once, but would also consume 150 MP. Rin reaches the bottom floor and defeats the boss, completing the dungeon in just 10 minutes. He considers going for another run, but realizes it's not feasible due to his insufficient MP. His total MP is 790, but a single run costs 450 MP. Using an MP recovery potion isn't an option either due to its high cost. Rin then comes up with an idea to reduce the MP cost and sets the teleportation range to 2 meters, which only costs 6 MP. He tests it out, and it works. The MP cost is reduced to a fifth of the original cost, allowing him to go for another 7 to 8 runs easily. After a total of 14 runs, Rin's MP is significantly depleted, but his level increases, reaching level 470. He also gains 700 SP in a new skill, Magic Up and Magic Recovery. Rin is thrilled because this is exactly what he wanted. He decides to aim for a more efficient run the next day. After completing 17 runs, Rin hears a notification indicating that he has challenged the dungeon the maximum number of times allowed and will no longer be able to enter it. As a reward for completing the dungeon, Rin's level increases by 15, and he earns the title of Dungeon Destroyer. Rin returns to the recall point and exits the dungeon. He learns that each person can only clear the same dungeon a certain number of times. Rin decides to keep this information to himself. He checks his stats board, sees his new title, and learns that he will receive a bonus after clearing 10 more dungeons. Rin sets a new goal for himself and bids farewell to the Umami dungeon. The next day, Rin oversleeps. His sister tells him that she tried to wake him up several times. Rin is surprised to see breakfast ready, and his sister jokingly says that it's actually last night's dinner, which Rin didn't eat. Rin comments that it's not good and suggests that she should eat it. She advises Rin to take a break if he's that tired and asks if he has any plans for the day. Rin replies that he doesn't have any plans and mentions that he will go to the dungeon. However, she insists that he should take a break, and Rin agrees. Rin is pleased because his sister cares so much about him, but he soon realizes that she had an ulterior motive when she asks him to accompany her shopping to carry her stuff. At the market, they buy a crepe that his sister spotted. They sit on a bench and enjoy the crepe. His sister takes a bite from Rin's crepe and offers him a bite of hers. Yui spots them and approaches them. It turns out that Yui is studying at the same school as Rin's sister and is her senior. Rin's sister asks how Rin knows Yui, and Rin explains that he met her in a dungeon. Yui is taken aback and apologizes for intruding. Yui assumes that Rin and his sister are a couple. Rin corrects her and asks if she knows another person named Ame. She thinks for a moment and concludes that this means they are married while still in school. Rin's sister comments that Yui's imagination is as active as ever and tells Rin that Yui is always like this. The three of them go to a family restaurant. Yui bows her head and apologizes, saying she didn't realize they were siblings. Rin tells her to lift her head because he's not angry. Their ice cream order arrives, and Yui asks if it's okay for her to eat it since she's already caused him so much trouble. Rin assures her it's not a problem and suggests that she can consider it a thank you for taking care of his sister. Yui, who was eager to eat, decides to dig in. Rin comments that his sister is eating a lot, to which she replies that girls have a separate stomach for desserts. She literally ate a whole crepe. Rin wonders if his sister might actually have a separate stomach while he sips his black coffee. Yui inquires if Rin also attended the same high school, to which Rin affirms. Hana points out that this means they were in the same school for a year. Yui decides to address Rin as Rin-senpai from then on. Hana invites Yui to join them. Rin expresses that it would be a big help because Hana can be quite troublesome when it comes to shopping, and having Yui join them would lend him a helping hand. Rin thought this would alleviate Yui's anxiety, but it had a different effect. Hana remarks that Rin is the worst, and Yui agrees that his choice of words was a bit strange. At the shopping mall, Yui and Hana completely forget about Rin, prompting him to decide to get a drink. He opens the can, but it spills on his clothes. Rin goes to the restroom to clean up. After a considerable amount of time, Rin returns and sees Yui surrounded by boys. 3 boys are flirting with her. Rin steps in and declares that she's with him. Hearing this, they leave, looking disappointed. Rin is surprised at how quickly they backed off. Rin apologizes to Yui for being late, but Yui assures him that she's not upset. Rin pats her head, but then stops because he confused Yui with Hana. Rin apologizes, but Yui assures him that she didn't mind at all. In fact, she admits that she would like him to pat her more. This confession leaves Yui feeling quite embarrassed, especially since Rin heard it clearly. Hana, who has been observing them, comments that she didn't realize the two of them were so close. Rin then notices something in Hana's hand and asks about it. Hana is pleased that Rin asked and explains that she thought it looked tasty, so she decided to buy it. The following day, in the E-rank Shin dungeon, Rin battles monsters and his dungeon teleportation skill increases to level 2, with the activation time reduced to 1 second. Rin believes it will now be a piece of cake and continues to slay monsters, but reaching the boss room takes longer than expected, even after 100 runs. However, Rin remains determined and on the 4th day, he manages to complete 200 runs. Suddenly, a voice in Rin's mind announces the completion of the dungeon and a bonus reward of 15 level ups. Rin can no longer enter this dungeon. He is thrilled because he has finally cleared his 2nd dungeon, completing a long journey and clearing a dungeon in 4 days. At home, Rin opens his stats board and reviews his new skills. He wonders which one he should choose but decides to wait until he finds the next dungeon before deciding. Rin aims to challenge a C-rank dungeon, which has no mobs with status debuff attacks, so it won't be a hassle for Rin to solo. He finds a dungeon like that named Kanzaki Dungeon, which has an entry level of 600 for soloing. Rin plans to go there the next day but then remembers that he is in a cooldown period. As a result, he spends a week slaying low-level monsters in the Unagi dungeon, regaining his battle sense. He gains over 1 million and his level increases by 3. He totals all his money and realizes that he now has 2 million yen. He decides to treat Hana to an expensive meal. The next day, he is finally able to enter his first C-rank dungeon. When he arrives at the dungeon, he finds many adventurers there, most of whom are C-rank. All the adventurers there are well equipped, except for Rin. Suddenly, a commotion occurs and people start talking about a rumored party, where all the members have unique skills. They have reached 2,000 levels a year after their debut. The party has been invited by many guilds, but they declined them all. Rin wonders why those people are here. Kazami spots Rin and greets him. Kazami says it's quite a coincidence running into Rin, and Rin says he is also surprised. Rin recalls his past memories about eavesdropping on their conversation. Kazami asks Rin to introduce his party member, but Rin says that he works solo. Kazami asks him to stop joking because a level of 600 is needed to enter this dungeon as a solo adventurer and asks if Rin has reached it. Rin confirms that he has reached level 600, which surprises Kazami. He is relieved to see that Rin is doing well. Rin asks what they are doing here because he heard a rumor about them having over 2,000 levels. Kazami says the reason is a new girl named Kurosaki Rei, a newcomer who just became an adventurer a few months ago. Kazami says that she has a unique skill, so he invited her to join his party, and today he is accompanying Rei to level her up. Rin whispers and asks Kazami if Rei is that good. Kazami says that she reached over level 500 in just 3 months, which surprises Rin. Both of them wish each other good luck. Rin takes a big sigh and opens his eyes and sees Rei in front of him. He asks if she is Amain Rei. Rei asks how did he know, so Rin tells her that Kazami told him that. Rei tells Rin that the party member said that Rin is an incompetent member who used to be in a party with him, but Rei says that Rin doesn't look like it. Rin asks what this is based on, but she replies that it is just a hunch. Rei expresses that there's something unusual about Rin, as he doesn't seem like someone who views themselves as incompetent. Rin inquires if she's being bothered by the party, but Rei assures him that they're very supportive and kind to her. She admits she doesn't have any complaints, except for one, their party name, King of Uniques. Rin candidly responds that he thinks it's a terrible name. Rei is delighted because Rin is the first person she's shared her feelings with. She introduces herself and asks Rin to address her as Rei. In that moment, the King of Unique Victims Association is formed, much to Rin's confusion. Rin finally enters his first C-rank dungeon. The atmosphere in C-rank dungeons is distinctly different. As he walks, he encounters some monsters, orcs, and decides to engage them in battle. The C-rank Kanzaki dungeon consists of 30 levels in total. The monsters in this dungeon are orcs, horned rabbits, and red boars. The boss at the lowest level is a high orc. The reward for completing the dungeon is 20 levels and an explosive magic stone worth 100k yen. If this is your first attempt and you finish with a sword, you will be given a Kanzaki sword. Rin encounters a pack of level 400 orcs and decides to fight them. One of the orcs attacks Rin, but he dodges it and cuts off the orc's arm. Rin is surrounded by orcs, but he dodges their attacks, uses an item box, throws an explosive stone at them, and starts killing them. After defeating all of them, Rin collects the magic stones and finds an orc stone axe. Rin uses his identify skill on the axe and learns that the recommended level for the axe is 400 and its attack power is plus 200. Rin comments that this is expected from a C-rank dungeon, as Rin's Dreaming Dagger's attack damage is plus 60. Rin decides to collect the axe and put it in his item box. Rin continues exploring the dungeon and encounters a horned rabbit, which is much smaller than he expected. The horned rabbit, a level 400 monster, attacks Rin, but Rin counters with his dagger. The horned rabbit is quite dangerous, but Rin knows how to deal with it and kills it. Rin gains experience and his level increases by 1. C-rank dungeons give more EXP than others. After reaching the 15th level, Rin encounters a red boar, a level 450 monster. The red boar attacks Rin, but he easily dodges its attacks because they only attack in a straight line. Rin dodges it and attacks the boar with his dagger, but it has no effect on it. So, Rin opens his item box, takes out a stone axe, and attacks it on its head. Killing the red boar gives Rin some experience points and his level increases by 1 level. The red boar's skin can fetch a good amount of money, but the item box's space is small. Rin decides to leave it and moves on. He keeps leveling up and finally reaches the Kanzaki dungeon's lowest floor. It is finally time to face the high orc. Rin opens the gate and sees a big black figure. It's a high orc, a level 600 monster, and the dungeon boss of Kanzaki dungeon. The red boar attacks Rin, but he dodges it. The high orc's attack is powerful enough to damage the ground. If Rin had taken that hit, he would have lost half of his HP. Rin makes up his mind and decides not to give up. He starts running around the high orc in a circle. Rin sees a chance and hits the high orc, but it doesn't do much damage to the huge orc. The high orc again goes to attack him, but Rin keeps dodging and attacking it. After a critical hit, the high orc's axe falls from its hands and it starts roaring. But Rin doesn't give in and goes to attack the high orc head-on and kills the high orc. A voice in Rin's mind announces that the dungeon boss has been defeated. After defeating the dungeon boss, Rin gains 4 more experience points and gets 20 levels up as a dungeon reward. Rin finally wins the battle. Though it was overwhelming, Rin doesn't lose any HP or MP. He is growing. Rin decides to collect the loot and goes to collect the high orc magic stone. Rin decides to collect the high orc club. The club is so heavy that Rin can't use it, so he decides to take it home and sell it. Rin also gets an explosive magic stone. Rin is left wondering about his rewards, particularly the absence of the Kanzaki sword, which he was certain he had earned. He decides to investigate this once he returns, but finds that the teleportation is still not activated. A voice in Rin's mind confirms his first successful solo attempt at clearing the dungeon using a sword to defeat the dungeon boss. The voice also confirms that Rin does not possess the swordsmanship skill, and that the condition for the unnamed swordsman has been met, triggering the appearance of an extra boss, the unnamed knight. These events unfold rapidly, leaving Rin little time to comprehend the situation. Suddenly, a night monster materializes from the ground. Despite Rin's current level being 808, the newly appeared unnamed knight boasts a formidable level of 11-0. The Unnamed Knight, an extra boss that has never appeared in the Kanzaki dungeon before, begins to approach Rin. Given that Rin's level is 800 and the Unnamed Knight is a higher level boss, Rin anticipates that he stands no chance of defeating it. However, Rin has no choice but to fight the boss because the door won't open until he either defeats the Unnamed Knight or gets killed. Resolute, Rin prepares himself for the battle. The Unnamed Knight attacks Rin with his sword, but Rin counters it with his dagger. Rin is taken aback by the Unnamed Knight's strength. The Unnamed Knight's attacks are so swift that Rin can barely parry them. The Unnamed Knight continues to attack Rin, dominating the fight. Rin realizes he needs to fight back somehow, but he struggles to go on the offensive. When Rin sees an opening, he attacks the Unnamed Knight, but its armor is so hard that it doesn't even scratch. The Unnamed Knight attacks Rin again, but Rin blocks the attack with his dagger. However, the Unnamed Knight uses his foot to kick Rin, causing Rin to take significant damage. His HP drops to 5780 from 6440 due to the powerful kick. Despite the vast difference in their strength, Rin asserts that he now understands the Unnamed Knight's tactics. He notes that while the Unnamed Knight specializes in terrifying offensive power and durability, Rin is slightly faster in terms of speed. Rin decides to look for a gap and target the elbows and knees, which are the weak points of the armor. Determined, Rin readies his sword against the Unnamed Knight. Rin continues to attack the Unnamed Knight randomly, and after some time, he sees an opening and slices through its arm. However, the Unnamed Knight uses this as an opportunity to grab Rin's hand, using its right arm as bait on purpose. A monster with this level of intelligence is rare. The Unnamed Knight kicks Rin in his guts, causing Rin to fly and fall at the entrance of the boss room. Only 985 HP remains out of 6440. Rin fears that he might die in a place like this and laments the vast difference in their strength. Despite his best efforts to avoid certain death, a simple kick reduces his HP by 1000. Rin believes he has no chance of winning now, but then he thinks of his unique skill, dungeon teleportation. Rin theorizes that he might be able to escape to the other side of the gate using his skill, which seems to be the smartest option. Rin throws an explosive stone at the Unnamed Knight, but it has no effect. Rin recalls old memories of people telling him that he is not fit to be an adventurer and should do regular jobs. The adventurers around him called his dungeon teleportation skill useless, but Rin's hard work finally paid off. Even though what those people said was true, Rin resisted and didn't give up on his dream and motto. Rin uses dungeon teleportation and manages to get to the back of the Unnamed Knight. After launching the explosive magic stone at the Unnamed Knight, Rin takes 2 actions before activating his dungeon teleportation skill. First, he uses an intermediate health potion to restore his health from 985 to 1985. Then, he selects a new skill, Toughness, and upgrades it to level 6, which grants him an additional plus 1050 attack power. This is Rin's last chance for victory. Rin teleports behind the Unnamed Knight and attacks it. His dagger fails to pierce the knight's armor and shatters into pieces. Rin quickly opens his item box, retrieves an orc axe, and attacks the Unnamed Knight with it. He launches a series of attacks and manages to slice through the Unnamed Knight's left arm. Rin decides to end the battle, grabs the Unnamed Knight's sword, and easily cuts the Unnamed Knight in half. Exhausted from the fight, Rin declares that the Unnamed Knight is the strongest opponent he has defeated so far. Rin finally defeats the Unnamed Knight, the extra boss. A voice in his mind announces that the extra boss has been defeated, and that Rin has gained a total of 82 level ups, 30 level ups for defeating the extra boss and 52 level ups for clearing the dungeon. But the real reward is the sword Rin now holds. The Unnamed Knight's sword has an attack damage of plus 1100, and if the wielder's opponent is of a higher level, all stats except HP and MP are increased by 20%. The sword's name is quite long, so Rin decides to call it Unnamed. This sword is incredibly powerful, and Rin loses his dagger because of it. Rin thanks the dagger, his partner, for everything it has done for him until now. Rin also receives a new title, Nameless Swordsman, a title given to one who overcame hardship with nothing but their own strength, and without relying on others. When the title holder levels up, the performance of the equipped sword will also increase. If the sword art extraction skill is possessed, this title's effect will not appear. With this title, Rin's weapon becomes more effective when he levels up, and Rin decides to use it as best as he can. Rin decides to collect the items. Rin is unable to collect the Unnamed Knight's magic stone because it was destroyed in the Unnamed Knight's body. After collecting the items, he leaves the dungeon, bringing his long day in the Kanzaki dungeon to an end. The morning after his life or death battle with the Unnamed Knight, Rin visits a place near the Kanzaki dungeon in the heart of the city. He enters a weapon store, where a girl welcomes him and asks to see his adventurer's card. Rin presents his card to her. Despite already possessing a high-performance unnamed sword, Rin is there to purchase a new dagger. He had found that while the unnamed sword increased his attack power, it also slightly dulled his movements. If his opponent is weaker than him, the sword's special effect won't activate. Rin is concerned that his proficiency with the dagger might change, so he decides to use both a dagger and a long sword effectively. The shopkeeper, upon seeing his card, offers to show him equipment suitable for D-rank adventurers. Rin realizes that his card still shows him as a D-rank adventurer because he didn't apply to update his rank after clearing a C-rank dungeon the previous day. If he had informed the supervisor that he cleared a C-rank dungeon, he wouldn't have been able to challenge the Kanzaki dungeon for a week. The shopkeeper points to the D-rank department, but Rin expresses more interest in the C-rank department and starts examining the daggers. Rin wonders which one he should choose, noting that the ones with special features are expensive. But such features are not necessary in his case. He asks the shopkeeper to show him a dagger he pointed at, the Kirakuchi dagger. This dagger, a reward for defeating the boss of the Kirakuchi dungeon alone, requires a level of 800 to equip and has an attack damage of plus 500. While it doesn't have any special features, its performance is good. It also seems similar to the dreaming dagger he had. The level limitation is not a problem for Rin. The shopkeeper informs him that the dagger's price is 2 million yen and advises him to reconsider, pointing out that the dagger is superior, but also expensive, and above all, D-rank adventurers are unable to wield it. Rin assures her that it's okay because he understands its worth. He retrieves the money from his item box, shows it to her, and affirms that he can afford it. Upon seeing the money, the shopkeeper's vacant expression transforms into a glowing, happy face, and she sells the dagger to Rin. Rin once again finds himself in the Kanzaki dungeon, where he continues his strategy and defeats a red boar. Rin levels up and switches out his weapons, which makes it much easier to defeat the monsters than before. As red boars sell for a high price, Rin decides to bring one back with him. He levels up his item box to level 2, increasing its capacity, and is able to put the red boar in his item box. Rin finally reaches the boss room, and this time, he gains 2 levels. Rin wants to battle the boss immediately, but before that, he opens his item box and pulls out his unnamed sword. He intentionally does this because he wanted to test the effect of the title he received yesterday. He decides to use this sword for the boss fight because he wants to upgrade the performance of the unnamed sword. Rin enters the boss room and challenges the boss, a high orc. Rin comments that yesterday he was on the defensive, but today he's going to attack the high orc head-on. After some hits, he is able to damage the high orc. Rin wonders how many strikes he can withstand and strikes the high orc many times. Rin is easily able to defeat the boss, and he gets 20 level ups as his dungeon strategy reward and 2 level ups in value of experience. There is total silence in the room, and Rin is relieved that no extra boss would come out. Rin is very excited to see the effect of his title and uses appraisal on his unnamed sword. It turns out that the sword's attack power went up to plus 20. Rin retrieves the magic stones and returns to the recall point of the Kanzaki dungeon at the dungeon gate. Rin looks at the time and decides to go for one more round because he still has enough stamina. Rin thinks that if he does a speed run using his teleportation skill, he can possibly do it for 4 or 5 times. Rin takes a look around the recall point and no one is there, so there are usually a lot of people in the Kanzaki dungeon. Rin walks around to find a good spot for him to teleport where no one can see, but he sees Rei. Rin sees Rei's sword and it seems like the blade was shaking. Rin doesn't give it much attention and starts talking with Rei. Rin asks why she is not with Kazami and others today. Rei replies that because she doesn't want to be accompanied by them all the time. When she went in with them yesterday, they judged that she could probably make it on her own to the 10th floor, so she came here to raise her level. Rin decides to be careful while making his lap because if he runs into her again she would get suspicious. Rin says that he should get going, but Rei grabs his hand and asks Rin to go together because this is a great opportunity. 10 minutes after their meeting, Rin and Rei embarked on an adventure together, reaching the 5th floor of the Kanzaki dungeon. As they walked in silence, an awkward atmosphere enveloped them. To break the silence, Rei asked Rin about his age and hobbies. Caught off guard, Rin momentarily froze, likening the questions to those asked on a blind date. Rei revealed that she was 17 and kept her hobby a secret, playfully placing a finger on her lips. When Rei asked Rin about his hobbies and age, he shared that he was 19. However, he hesitated to reveal his hobbies. Aside from adventuring in dungeons, he spent most of his time with Hana. Worried that Rei might misconstrue this as him being overly attached to his sister, he instead mentioned that he enjoyed games and manga, although he didn't have much time for them lately. Ray seemed interested but tried her best to conceal it. Just as Ray was about to ask about his favorite manga, Rin changed the subject, advising Ray to stay alert as monsters could appear at any moment. Rin didn't catch what she said in response and asked her to repeat it, but she dismissed it as nothing. During their walk, they encountered a group of orcs. They prepared for battle, with Rin deciding to take on the 2 orcs on the left and Ray handling the orcs on the right. Rin quickly engaged the orcs, but noticed that their skin was tougher than usual. An orc attempted to attack him from behind. Rin blocked the attack with his dagger, but the force of the orc's strike was so strong that it damaged the ground. Rin was puzzled, as this was not the strength of a typical orc. He used his identify skill on the orc and discovered that its level was 600. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Rin decided to fight seriously. He swiftly killed an orc and managed to defeat another one that was about to attack him from behind. Thanks to his level up the previous day, Rin was able to move quickly. He wondered if Ray needed help, but she easily defeated her opponents despite the 5-meter distance between them. Rin was surprised to see that Ray's sword could extend. When he asked her about it, Ray explained that her blade was a unique magical blade. This magical blade could create swords with special features. The one she used was created with the image of wind, which allowed it to stretch. Rin was impressed, acknowledging that even with its limitations in terms of skill level and MP amount, it was still a good skill. Ray blushed and thanked Rin. She also complimented Rin, stating that despite hearing from Kazami and others that Rin was weak, his actions in the earlier battle proved otherwise. Rin, our tsundere main character, blushed and thanked her in return. Rin inquired if Ray had also perceived the orcs as being more formidable, to which Ray concurred, noting that they were indeed tougher than before. Rin proposed that they should investigate the cause, as his appraisal of the orc revealed a level of 600, equivalent to the dungeon boss. Rin decided to conduct an investigation and asked Ray if she was planning to return to the surface. However, Ray expressed her intention to accompany him. They commenced their exploration, and after traversing through 5 levels, they were finally able to identify the cause. They observed orcs consuming other monsters, a phenomenon known as monster eaters. Typically, a defeated monster is absorbed by the dungeon, but occasionally, monsters possessing magic stones do not get absorbed. When another monster consumes such a monster, they become stronger. Rin deduced that the previously encountered orc had also originated from there. Ray questioned if defeating these orcs would resolve the issue. They resolved to eliminate them and initiated their attack. After a while, they managed to defeat all the orcs. Rin declared that he would collect the magic stones and requested Ray to incinerate the corpses with her sword. Rin expressed his gratitude to Ray for her companionship, but Ray countered that Rin was also instrumental in their success, as she wouldn't have been able to accomplish anything without his knowledge. Thus, she declared that they were now even. Ray inquired about Rin's motivation for becoming an adventurer. Rin, who had only ever disclosed his reason to Hana, shared with Ray that he had been saved by an adventurer as a child, which inspired him to become a strong adventurer like his savior. Ray expressed her happiness upon hearing his story, and they decided to continue their journey. Rin reflected that although he usually preferred to operate solo, adventuring with a companion wasn't too bad. The next day, Rin formed a temporary party with Ray. Rin returned to the Kanzaki dungeon and began clearing it. He repeated his strategy at the Kanzaki dungeon 15 times, and in a single day, his level increased by 301, and he also earned up to 3 million. Using the dungeon teleportation skill, he teleported inside dungeon floors rapidly to gain more levels. He kept killing red boats because they fetched high prices. He defeated high orcs 20 times, earned 4 million, and gained over 400 more levels. Despite upgrading the item box to level 4, it was still overfilled, so Rin decided to call it a day as he is the only one who can level up the next day. Rin had become so powerful that even a high orc's attack had no effect on him. Rin stopped the high orc's attack barehanded and slashed the high orc in half using his unnamed sword. After defeating it, Rin received a notification that the dungeon boss had been defeated, and that Rin had cleared the dungeon a specific number of times. Now, Rin could no longer receive rewards from this dungeon. He gained 50 levels as a bonus. Rin had accumulated a lot of SP 1510. Rin raised the level of enemy search, secrecy, and abnormal condition resistance to level 4, but he still had over 610 SP left. He used the remaining SP to strengthen his body, and it felt good because compared to a few minutes ago, Rin's true strength was orders of magnitude greater. With the dungeon now cleared, Rin decided to plan his next move. Rin decided to battle through the Uenagi dungeon, which Rin hadn't broken through yet. After clearing the Uenagi dungeon, he decided to go to the E-rank Arakawa dungeon, which he visited around the time he first became an adventurer. After 3 days of battling in the Uenagi dungeon, Rin completed the dungeon for a specific number of times. His level again increased by 15 levels as a bonus reward, and he would no longer be able to receive rewards from completing the Uenagi dungeon. That night, Rin was contemplating which skill he should use his SP on when he received mail on his mobile phone. The next day, Rin was waiting for Yui. When Yui arrived, she asked if she made him wait, to which Rin instantly replied yes. Yui was surprised by his blunt answer and told him that this is where he should say he didn't wait at all. Rin was clueless about it. Rin said that he was really grateful that he could go out with her that day. They both went to a cafe. Rin asked what Yui wanted to consult about and guessed that since she was asking him for advice, then it might be about the dungeon, and it turned out that Rin was right. Yui told him that she was scouted by a certain guild. Each adventurer guild can contain dozens to hundreds of adventurers. From high-ranking guilds, a large amount of influence or privilege can be gained. For that reason, guilds keep an eye on the adventurer's office, scouting people who have exceptional talent. Rin was curious about Yui's level and asked how many levels she had gone up since last time. She happily said that she passed the 100 level the other day. Rin was surprised that Yui got scouted, even though she just passed level 100. When it comes to guilds seeking immediate force, it's not medium or small size, so Rin thought that probably some large guild with a lot of financial power was seeking to raise low-leveled adventurers and asked Yui the guild's name. Yui told him the guild is called Uezuki and showed him the guild's business card. Rin examined the card and recognized it as one of the top guilds where he had spent the last few years. Yui agreed, stating that the guild was recommended because it was still growing. Healers are in high demand everywhere due to the high cost of potions, leading to a trend of hiring healers. Rin asked if she was seeking advice on whether to join or not, and Yui confirmed his guess. Rin expressed his uncertainty about guilds, but Yui reassured him that his opinion was valuable. Rin decided to help her by explaining the pros and cons of joining a guild. He first explained the benefits, such as the provision of equipment and dungeoning information, and the selection of compatible team members. Rin advised her to choose her teammates carefully due to a previous incident. He then explained the downsides of joining a guild, including limited freedom due to capture schedules and requests from the association. Yui added that guilds have obligations in exchange for their privileges. When a problem arises in the dungeon, the association can order the guild to respond, and the guild must comply unless there are certain circumstances. This sometimes leads guild members into dangerous situations. Rin summarized his points, advising her to join if she wanted to become stronger quickly, but to refrain from joining if she valued other things. Rin expressed interest in why Yui became an adventurer. Yui explained that she didn't initially intend to become an adventurer due to her fear of fighting monsters and discomfort with weapons. However, she obtained her qualifications and entered the dungeon at her friend's invitation. She knew that obtaining the stats board could make her stronger and prevent her from dying in a traffic accident. When Yui obtained her stats board, she discovered her talent as a healer. She thought she could support other adventurers from the rear, which is why she continued to work as an adventurer. She found it rewarding and wanted to continue growing the power that could save others. Rin appreciated her reasons and noted that she seemed to have made up her mind. Yui confirmed that she was going to join the guild. Rin advised her to withdraw if she couldn't handle it, emphasizing that her life was the most important thing. She assured Rin not to worry because she could only work on weekends as a student, and the guild decided to pay her more than the usual healer's rate. Yui suggested that she might have surpassed Rin's earnings. Rin, who could now earn about 10 million yen in 3 days, wondered if she could match that. After they finished their orders, Rin suggested leaving and offered to pay the bill, but Yui insisted on paying for it that day. Rin told her not to worry because even though she was going to join a guild, it would be a while before she could make any money. If she still insisted, she could pay by all means. Yui blushed and complimented Rin on his caring and dependable nature, but questioned why he didn't have a lover yet. Rin asked if she was teasing him and how she knew about his relationship status, questioning if she was stalking him. Yui denied it and revealed that Hana had told her. While Rin and Yui were strolling through the market, they spotted Rei. Yui called out to Rei, but Rei responded to Rin instead, causing Yui to question why. Rei didn't recognize Yui, who was shocked and reminded Rei that they were in the same class. Yui asked Rin how he knew Rei, and Rin explained that they had met in a dungeon the previous week. Rin noticed the anime song DVD Rei was holding and realized that she was also into manga and anime. Yui was glad to have a conversation with Rei, who usually wore headphones during lunch break at school. Yui mentioned the anime song Rei was listening to, which seemed to surprise Rei. Rin asked Rei if she planned to go dungeoning that day, and Rei informed him that she was meeting with Kazami and others to go to the Kanzaki dungeon. While Rin and Rei were talking, Yui was engrossed in the collection of anime songs, unaware that there were so many. Rei and Rin were staring at each other when Rei asked if Rin was going to the dungeon that day. Rin was about to say that he had cleared another dungeon but stopped himself and said that he had captured another dungeon yesterday, and today was a rest day. Rei asked Rin if he was in a relationship with Yui since they were together on Rin's day off. Rin tried to explain that Yui was with him because she wanted to consult about something. Rei then asked if Rin liked younger partners. Rin thought it was a difficult question and decided to be honest and said that if he had to choose between like or dislike, he would go with like. Rei seemed disappointed and said that he likes younger girls. Rin thought he made a mistake in his choice but decided not to regret it. Suddenly, an emergency occurred. A voice over the speaker announced that a dungeon collapse was happening in the Kanzaki dungeon and asked citizens to evacuate immediately. They also requested cooperation from adventurers of C rank or higher. Everyone was shocked by the announcement. A dungeon collapse is a rare phenomenon that occurs when a dungeon disappears. This means that the usual gate used by adventurers can also be used by monsters, causing the town to be overrun with monsters. Rin is planning to eliminate the emerging monsters and asks Rei about her plans. Rei decides to accompany Rin. As they are about to leave, Yui intervenes, expressing her desire to join them. Rin informs her that the Kanzaki dungeon requires a minimum level of 500. But Yui assures him that she will only provide healing magic for the injured, not engage in combat. Rin appreciates her determination. He explains that normal humans can't use potions, so healing magic should be beneficial. He instructs Yui to stay close to him and invites her to join them. Yui is overjoyed and expresses her gratitude to Rin. They decide to head to the dungeon, with Yui suggesting they equip themselves while they have the opportunity. Rei and Rin swiftly change their gear using the item box. Yui feels left out as she hasn't received her item box yet. Rei receives a message from Kazami, asking her to join them in handling the situation as a group. Rei bids them farewell and departs. Rin experiences a sudden unease but dismisses it as his imagination. Rin and Yui decide to press on. They encounter a group of monsters attacking adventurers. The adventurers plead for help, and Rin swiftly eliminates all the orcs. The adventurers question if Rin was the one who defeated all the orcs as it happened so quickly. Meanwhile, Yui heals an injured person. Despite her low level, her recovery speed is impressive, leading Yui to believe she might be exceptionally skilled. Yui questions if they are still heading to the Kanzaki dungeon, but Rin suggests that if the monsters have already reached this far, it would be better to address the dungeon itself. However, going to the Kanzaki dungeon doesn't guarantee he can help. The most challenging aspect of a dungeon collapse is that the monsters become unusually strong. The magic power used to maintain the dungeon gets absorbed by the monsters, making regular monsters 1.5 times stronger and dungeon bosses nearly 10 times their usual strength. This state is referred to as the last boss. Defeating the last boss will end the dungeon collapse and cause the dungeon to vanish. However, the real issue is that as time passes, the last boss's strength increases. If the dungeon collapses completely before it's subdued, the last boss can escape. Although it should be eliminated immediately, the increase in strength also raises their danger level by 1 rank. If the Kanzaki dungeon is a C rank, then a B rank adventurer party with an average level of 5,000 plus will be required. Rin is far from that level and he inadvertently informed Rei that he had just captured the dungeon the previous day. Since the countdown for challenging the dungeon remains active during the collapse, it will be revealed that Rin can bypass the cooldown if he shows up for the last boss subjugation. Kazami and his party members make their way to the lowest floor of the Kanzaki dungeon and defeat all the monsters near the boss room. They reach the boss room quite quickly. It appears that B-rank parties dispatched by nearby guilds are due to arrive in half an hour, causing quite a commotion in front of the dungeon. Kazami, using his fame, tries to enter the dungeon. The administrator attempts to stop them because their levels are too low, so they promise to only clear mobs and gain entry to the dungeon. Rei is curious as to why Kazami is ignoring most of the mobs, but now they just have to wait for the B-rank party and support. Kazami suggests that the monsters on the way are no big deal, so he proposes to go inside the boss room and defeat the last boss. This surprises Rei. One of them thought they were going to wait for reinforcements, but Kazami believes that the monster on their way here was so weak that they could easily challenge the dungeon boss and win. He also suggests that they should start thinking about gaining prestige and sees this as a prime opportunity for them to showcase their abilities. Rei is shocked and surprised to hear this because preventing the dungeon collapse should be their top priority. but they seem to prioritize their own prestige over their lives. All other party members agree with Kazami's suggestion. Rei questions if they are really planning on proceeding, as this was not what they promised the administrators. Kazami assures her that defeating the boss would resolve any issues and asks Rei to stand by while they defeat the boss. Rei finally understands that for these people, mitigating the damage from the dungeon collapse is a secondary priority. They decide to challenge the boss room and enter, knowing that no reinforcements will come and the gate will only open if they either die or defeat the boss. Kazami is taken aback because the last boss is indeed powerful with a level of 3000. Everyone is frightened, but Kazami rallies them and they decide to fight the High Orc, last boss. 10 minutes later, Rei is terrified because the last boss is so overpowering. But Kazami and the others continue to fight, believing they can defeat the last boss. Kazami asks Yuya to seal the High Orc and decides to attack the High Orc with his final attack, but the High Orc roars. Suddenly, Kazami feels a sense of relief, thinking it was the High Orc's last struggle. But then many unnamed knight soldiers emerge from the ground. Kazami and the others had never encountered this type of enemy. All of the knights had levels of 2000. Kazami hastily uses his lightning skill, but it has no effect on the knights. Kazami is about to ask Yuya and Kusuke to immobilize them, but the knights are already targeting them. Kazami and the others realize that the unnamed knights are intelligent. Kazami is terrified, but Rei uses her blade to assist Kazami. Kazami uses his lightning skill again and manages to kill the unnamed knight. They are able to defeat all the knights, but the High Orc has already broken through the seal and evolved. The strengthening from the dungeon collapse is not complete, and the knights were fighting them to buy time for the High Orc to complete his strengthening. Kazami asks Sekira about the High Orc's level. Sekira informs him that it is no longer a High Orc but an Orc General with a level of 4000. This alone is a death sentence for them. Kazami continues to use his lightning skill on the Orc General, but it has no effect. Rei can't believe how weak her party is. The monsters Rei has fought in the past, which were supposed to be stronger than her, were so weak that they could be dealt with unique skills. But the Orc General is different. This is their first time fighting a superior monster. The Orc and Rei's eyes meet, and the Orc goes to attack Kazami. Rei runs and pushes Kazami out of the way. The Orc's attack hits Rei, and she goes flying and hits the door. Blood starts coming from her mouth. Rei becomes unable to move her body, and her HP also falls down 10%. Rei looks for her teammates from there. Kazami uses his lightning skill, and the Orc General's attack hits the ground, causing smoke everywhere. When the smoke clears, Rei sees that everyone is knocked out, but they are still breathing. It's only a matter of time before all of them will die. The Orc General looks at Rei but walks away as an unnamed knight starts walking towards her to kill her. They defeated all unnamed knights, but they didn't kill one. Rei tries to move, but she can't move at all. She thinks that this is her end. She looks at the door, but it's still closed. The door opens, and there is someone to help, as if. There is no miracle like that. Heroes only appear in fiction. That's what Rei thinks. Rei wonders when she messed up and wonders if it was when she joined the King of Uniques or was it when she couldn't stop them. The unnamed knight swings the sword to kill Rei. Rei thinks that if they die, the door will open again, and the B-rank party's adventurer can defeat the Orc General. She thinks that at least their sacrifice will not be in vain and closes her eyes. She closes her eyes but suddenly hears a metal sound and wonders why it didn't hurt at all and opens her eyes. She finds that the unnamed knight's head is on the ground, and the unnamed knight is dead. Rei doesn't understand, but she sees Rin standing in front of her, and Rin apologizes to her for being late. Rin informs other adventurers that the monsters above ground have been dealt with. He questions Yui's ability to handle the Kanzaki dungeon, but she confidently asserts that she is fine because she is an adventurer. Rin is impressed by her response, considering she has been treating 20 people for the past few hours. Despite her level and the fact that she is consuming MP recovery potions, she is working hard, living up to the expectations of someone who got scouted so early. Outside the Kanzaki dungeon, there is quite a commotion. Rin notices a B-rank party and wonders if they are here to defeat the last boss. He asks the adventurers if something happened because their expressions seem strange. They inform him that Kazami's party has entered the boss room. They learn from a member who rushed to the boss room and communicated via telepathy that the boss room still can't be opened even after a considerable amount of time has passed. Rin questions if it was a reckless attempt to defeat the last boss because if Kazami's party is unable to defeat it, then Rin won't be able to defeat them either. Rin remembers Rei and asks about her whereabouts, considering her current level is completely out of place. The adventurers tell him that they saw all 5 of them enter the dungeon. Rin is shocked as Kazami deceived Rei into rushing in. Suddenly, the dungeon starts trembling and its collapse enters its final phase. The boss will soon come out and they have no time left. They decide to somehow buy some time, and one of the adventurers mentions that the boss has grown stronger and will keep getting stronger as the dungeon collapse continues, and says that Kazami and his party are done for. Shocked, Rin decides to enter the dungeon and runs toward it. Rin could easily use the dungeon teleportation to get inside the gate, but he will be suspicious when returning. So he decides to pretend that he is entering the gate, and uses his skill to enter the dungeon. He uses his dungeon teleportation to quickly teleport between floors. Rin hopes that it's a misunderstanding and says that it will be best if Kazami's party is capable of defeating the last boss. He uses his dungeon teleportation to reach the boss room and sees that the unnamed knight is about to kill Rei, and all other party members are unconscious. Rin pulls out the unnamed sword from the item box and beheads the unnamed knight. Rin sees Rei's condition and pulls the recovery potion from the item box and asks Rei to drink it slowly as it is a greater healing potion. Rei asks Rin why he is here, and Rin says that they will talk about it later because he has to do something first, and gives her more recovery potions and asks her to give them to Kazami and others when she is able to move. Rin sees the Orc General's level and it is at level 4000. It is so high that it makes Rin want to run away, but Rin has already made up his mind. Rin points his sword toward the Orc General and says that he will show him how a lower ranker fights, and jumps to attack the Orc General. Rin continues to strike the Orc General repeatedly, but it has no effect. Rin is in a difficult situation because if he gets hit by the Orc General, he would die instantly. But he also can't inflict much damage on the Orc General even if his attacks land. Rin is becoming more tired every time he dodges the Orc General's attack. But he has no other choice. He decides to use a hit and run strategy because this is how the weak fight. Rei is amazed by Rin. She is able to move, so she heals others and moves them aside. Right now for her, Rin is like a savior and her heart is thumping fast. But then she wonders how Rin got inside the dungeon room. Rin is fighting with the Orc General. Then she remembers that there was a former member in King of Unique, and Kazami told her that his name was Amain Rin, the most incompetent in their lineup, and that adventurers had a unique skill, dungeon teleportation. Rei wonders if, as the name suggests, Rin can teleport freely within the dungeon, then Rin doesn't need to enter the boss room, but she wonders how Rin is growing so fast. Then she remembers when Rin said that he conquered another dungeon, and said that if what she is thinking is right, then Rin has more potential than anyone in the world to become stronger. She wonders if that is really possible, and says that the only way to confirm it is to survive this boss fight. She makes praying hand gestures and prays for Rin to win. Meanwhile, Rin, still fighting the Orc General, said that he knew he was weak and that he learnt from countless battles that emotions drag you down. While battling in a dungeon, one should cut down its pride, caringness, and even fear, and only focus on the enemy in front of them. In order to obtain victory, the weak must bet on everything he got to win. Their resolve and determination can even defeat the high-rank monsters and enemy. Rin goes to attack the Orc General, but the Orc General attacks the ground and the stone starts flying. Rin uses this as an opportunity and uses his enemy search skill. Enemy search is a skill used to search for humans or monsters technically. It detects mana in a certain radius. The debris is a part of the dungeon, therefore it has magic in it. In other words, the debris can be grasped three-dimensionally. Rin moves forward, but the Orc General throws his weapon and decides to attack with his hands to move more quickly. Rei thought he wouldn't be able to dodge it, but Rin said that he had already experienced this strategy and used this as an opportunity to use super speed and dodge the attack, and quickly attack the Orc General. While super speed and strength skill are active, Rin's will lose MP very quickly, but right now he doesn't have to care about that because this is his final push. He drastically keeps attacking the Orc General. The Orc General becomes angry and makes a roar, which step back suddenly disappear. Rei is watching all this. Rin appears from the Orc General's backside and swings his sword and slashes through the Orc General. Rei's heart beats so fast seeing Rin, and when Rin says that it's over, she starts crying a bit. The dungeon boss gets defeated and Rin's level increases by 233. He also gets a reward for defeating the last boss and getting a 150 level increase. Rin also gains the title of Bringer of the End. Rei warmly calls out Rin's name and expresses her gratitude towards him. Rin, in return, voices his relief that everyone is safe and sound. He then proceeds to put away his unnamed sword in his item box. Rin suggests that Kazami should take some time to reflect on his actions, considering he had put the lives of others at risk. Despite everything, Rin is glad that Kazami survived. Rei acknowledges their own fault in not being able to stop Kazami. Seeing Rei's sad expression, Rin attempts to comfort her by patting her head, which she seems to enjoy. They both take a moment to celebrate the fact that everyone is still alive. Rei then proceeds to question Rin about how he managed to enter the dungeon and the boss room despite the door being closed. Rin admits to using dungeon teleportation, expressing surprise that Rei is aware of it. He considers being found out a small price to pay for getting into the boss room. Rei poses another question, asking if Rin used dungeon teleportation to bring people in during their cooldown. Rin denies it, but Rei seems unconvinced. She assures Rin that she won't reveal his secret, reasoning that if people discovered Rin's rapid growth and strength, he would attract unwanted attention. Rin thanks Rei for her discretion and decides to trust her. Rei points out that the real challenge will be explaining the defeat of the last boss once they return to the surface. When the last boss is defeated, the return area disappears along with the dungeon, teleporting everyone in the dungeon to the surface. This allows Rin to hide the fact that he was in the boss room. They'll assume that Kazami and the others were knocked out and Rei defeated the last boss alone. Rei considers this story plausible but comes up with a better one. She suggests that they could say Kazami released a powerful lightning strike before collapsing, and that they heard a large explosion when the Orc General attacked. They'll explain that the Orc General was defeated by the explosion. They decide to go with this story as a last-minute cover-up. Rin wonders if Kazami and the others will be recognized for their efforts. He thinks Kazami will be pleased, but he himself is indifferent. Rei reflects on the incident, acknowledging the terrifying difference between dungeons. She resolves to take responsibility to prevent everyone from rushing in if a similar situation arises again. Rin decides to collect the loot. He scans the room and inquires about the corpses of the unnamed knights, hoping to acquire another unnamed knight sword. Rei informs him that the corpses disappeared when Rin was fighting the Orc General, adding that the unnamed knights appeared in a strange way. Rin decides to at least collect the magic stone. The size and purity of the Orc General's magic stone surpass anything Rin has seen before. He estimates that the Orc General's magic stone could fetch millions of yen. The teleportation magic finally activates. Rei asks Rin how he will explain his reason for entering the dungeon. Rin admits that he completely forgot about it and jokingly attributes it to puberty, making a wisecrack. Thus, they finish defeating the last boss of the Kanzaki dungeon and return to the surface. Rin thought the case was closed, but later both Rin and Rei are reprimanded by the dungeon manager, and the people from the Yoisuke Guild for challenging the boss without waiting for backup and for rushing into a collapsing dungeon. Rei manages to convince them by explaining the details of the subjugation. They inform Rin that they will summon him another day and dismiss him for the time being. On their way back, Yui expresses her surprise at Rin's sudden entry into the dungeon. She blushingly suggests that Rin was so desperate that he forgot he couldn't enter the boss room. Rin plays dumb and claims it's embarrassing. Rei grabs his shirt and insists it wasn't embarrassing at all. She admits she was thrilled when Rin came to her rescue, her face slightly blushing. Rin covers his mouth and asks her to stop talking about it, claiming it's a secret. Yui, watching them interact, feels a pang of jealousy. She accuses them of getting too close and grabs Rin's arm. Rei also grabs his arm, leaving Rin clueless about what's happening. Rei understands the situation and declares she won't lose. Rin, Yui, and Rei resume their walk, with Rei and Yui each holding onto Rin's arm. At home, Rin checks his stats board and sees his level is now 3156. He looks at his new title and comments on its disturbing name. It's a title given to a player who solos the last boss, but it has an error on it. Rin decides not to worry about it too much since he doesn't know if he'll ever fight the last boss again. He's more interested in dungeon conquering and wonders what changes will happen to his dungeon teleportation skill if he levels it up to level 20. Rin asserts that if he continues to grow stronger, he's certain he'll become the world's strongest and once again vows to himself to be the fastest and strongest in the world. Meanwhile, an hour after the Kanzaki dungeon collapse, the Yoitsuki Guild Master is slacking off in his office. Someone knocks at the door and he gives them permission to enter. Claire walks in and urges him to stop slacking off, reminding him he needs to set an example for his subordinates. She reports that she arrived late at the scene due to the monsters that had leaked outside, but thankfully another adventurer managed to kill the last boss before her. The Guild Master says he's heard most of it and expresses his relief that everything worked out. He admits he was sweating cold when he heard that a party rushed in. Claire also reports that the King of Unique, who challenged the final boss on their own, got harshly scolded. The guildmaster recalls hearing this name a year ago, and admits he's still surprised because the dungeon was at its final stage of collapse. He didn't think the King of Uniques had the power to defeat the last boss at that stage. Claire says it was a close call and that the whole party, except one, were knocked out. The guildmaster asks if the last person standing was Rin, but then remembers that Rin had already left. He wonders if it was Kazami, but Claire reveals it was a newly joined member, Kurosaki Rei. Claire mentions that besides their guildmates and the King of Unique, there was another person who returned from the dungeon, Rin. The guildmaster asks if Rin cooperated in the fight, but Claire explains that he rushed into the dungeon after the battle between the King of Unique and the last boss had begun. Their guild members have confirmed that the boss room had never opened, so it was impossible for him to be there. Claire asks if the guildmaster knows Rin, and he tells her that a year ago he invited Rin to join another guild, but Rin immediately refused. The guildmaster was on his day off and didn't have his card, so he thought Rin probably thought the guildmaster was lying. Claire asks if Rin was that good because he invited him directly, but the guildmaster says that Rin was extremely weak and others thought of him as incompetent. Claire asks for the reason, and he tells her that it was Rin's unique skill that had potential and also Rin's eyes. Rin's behavior was normal, but his eyes were different. Rin's the type to move forward no matter what. He'd use and stop until he achieves his goal. The guildmaster says that Rin is the same as Claire. After their conversation, the guildmaster dismissed Claire. She left the room, gently closing the door behind her. The guildmaster, left alone in the room, gazed out the window at the sky and mused to himself, same as her eyes, As he pondered their similarities, Hana is having a dream about her family. For her, it's such a joyous and valuable time. Everything is going as it should, but it's cruelly taken away when Hana can no longer bear it. Rin is always there for her, but she has one regret. Hana wakes up from her dream, feeling as if she's seen a nostalgic dream, but she can't remember it clearly. She glances at the time and suddenly dashes into the kitchen. Rin is preparing breakfast. Hana tells Rin that if he woke up first, he should have woken her up too, but Rin replies that it's rare to see Hana oversleep, so he lets her be, Rin, the considerate character. Rin makes some toast and asks if Hana is going to eat. Rin's manga cafe special. Hana begins to eat breakfast, and Rin starts to fix her hair. Hairdo or dungeon raid. They watch the news on television and hear about the dungeon. Breakfast and dungeon updates. The prefecture is looking for high-ranking adventurers to participate in the first attack on a new dungeon. Meanwhile, in a B-rank dungeon, a tamer with the unique skill of being able to use monsters has died under suspicious circumstances. The news also mentions that a new S-rank adventurer has been born. S-rank adventurers are rare, with only double-digit numbers of them in the world. Additionally, the age at which people can register as adventurers has been significantly lowered this year. Qualification is now possible from the age of 16. Sweet 16, Dungeon Edition. She is pleased to hear the news. Rin finishes Hana's hair, and she thanks him before starting to run because she's already late. 3 days after the dungeon collapse, a new day begins. Rin completes 150 laps in the E-rank Arakawa dungeon. Rin, the dungeon marathoner. He reaches the lowest rank and defeats the boss. A voice appears in his mind, telling him that he has cleared the dungeon a specified number of times and has received a bonus reward of a 5-level increase. Dungeon voice, the real MVP. Now, Rin won't be able to get a reward from the dungeon even if he clears it in the future. Dungeon, we're done here, Rin. Rin has now completed his 5th dungeon. He wonders which skill he should spend his SP on. He has a 7010 SP shopping spree. Rin decides to increase the dungeon teleportation skill by 3 levels at once. The skill level of dungeon teleportation becomes LV15. The teleportation distance changes to 200 meters, and the MP use changes to 2 MP distance. It's like he's got his own private Uber, but for dungeons. Rin wonders if the growth is as he expected, but he decides to have expectations when the skill reaches LV20. Only 5 levels left. Level up anticipation. Rin decides to do his best tomorrow and heads home, but he can't do it because of the span as he has completed every dungeon he entered. Rin decides to take a little break. Even heroes need their beauty sleep. Rin's level has reached 3457 with many skills. Rin receives a call from Rei 3 days after he got bored of his vacation. They both meet at a cafe. Dungeon talks over coffee. Nothing like a good dungeon debrief over a cup of joe. Rei apologizes for calling Rin out of the blue and asks if he's busy. Surprise call from Rei. Rin says it's alright because he wants to know what happened to Kazami and the others, and he also wanted to meet her. Smooth move, Rin. Rei says it's fine then. Rei's got her poker face on. Rin notices that Rei's face is all red and asks if she has a cold. Or maybe Rin's charm is just too much to handle. Rei tells Rin about the disbanding of the King of Unique. Talk about a cliffhanger. Rei says that yesterday, Kazami talked to her about apologizing for exposing the party to danger, and that he didn't have the qualifications to be the leader, so he decided to disband. Kazami's got more guilt than a cat caught on the kitchen counter. Rin is surprised that Kazami said all that because he thought Kazami was going to be on a roll after defeating the last boss. Rin's optimism is brighter than a supernova. Kazami's unique skills are so powerful that he has been far from danger for a while. Kazami's been cruising through dungeons like their theme parks. It seems like that incident was the first time he'd seen how dreadful dungeons can be. Kazami's just had his welcome to the jungle moment. Rei tells Rin that Kazami doubted whether he was really the one who defeated the last boss. Kazami's like a superhero who doesn't know he's a superhero. But Rei says it's okay because in the end, Kazami accepted it, but still believing it was pure chance. Kazami says that it was a shock to him. Currently, dungeons have multiple safe strategies, so it's rare to encounter real danger. Rin wonders how many people would still stand back up after they know how dreadful the dungeon can be. Rin's getting deep here. Rin is asking Rei if she has become a solo player, and what her plans are for the future. Rei reveals that she plans to continue her journey as an adventurer, and has even set a new goal for herself, although she keeps the goal a secret. Rei's got more secrets than a treasure chest. Rin mentions that he would have invited her to join his party if it were possible, but he knows that due to the limitations of dungeon teleportation, which can't transport another person, Rei would become a hindrance. Rin's got his head in the game. Suddenly, Rei remembers something and pulls out an envelope from her purse. Rin inquires about its contents, and Rei explains that it's money, totaling 4 million. Rin's about to make it rain. Rin is taken aback and questions why she is giving him this. Rei explains that the potions he provided during the dungeon collapse were high-level healing potions, each worth 1 million. She is simply repaying what she owes. Rei's got more integrity than a knight in shining armor. Rei shares that she informed Kazami and the others that she used the potions on them, and they agreed to pay for them. She admits that she could only bring half of the money now but promises to repay the remaining amount as soon as possible. Respecting her determination, Rin accepts the money. Rin's got more understanding than a wise old sage. After they leave the cafe, Rei takes hold of Rin and asks if he would mind going on an adventure with her. Rin agrees, and they both start walking in their direction. Rin's more agreeable than a friendly NPC. Rin expresses his hope to see her again someday in the future when their paths cross. Rin's got more hope than a protagonist in a shounen manga. In the C-rank dungeon, the Devil Dungeon, Rin is battling a rainbow wolf, a level 3000 monster. This demon, with its fur of 9 colors, is known for its swift movements and powerful attacks using a wide variety of magic powers. Rin's up against a literal rainbow of trouble. Once the cooldown is complete, Rin spends 3 days stepping into 10 different dungeons. This allows him to enter any of them at any time through his dungeon teleportation skill. He decides to challenge the Devil Dungeon next, where he must confront the dungeon boss after collecting all 9 rare magic stones. After defeating the boss, Rin receives the Ring of Wolf as a bonus reward. This ring is a potent piece of equipment that reduces magic damage from flame, wind, water, soil, and light by 15%. It also reduces the probability of being inflicted with poison, paralysis, and sleep by 15%. Rin's got more bling than a rapper at an awards show. Rin is leveling up smoothly and making his way through the Devil's Dungeon. He enhances his skills of super strength, super speed, and dungeon teleportation, and is pumped up for the next day. However, the day after tomorrow, Hana asks Rin if he is free this weekend. Rin confirms that he will have some time. Hana, pleased to hear this, asks Rin to wear clothes that are easy to move in. Hana's got more plans than a master strategist. Rin assumes that Hana might want to go shopping and that he would carry her stuff, just like last time. He thinks it might be nice to have days like that once in a while. When the weekend finally arrives, Rin accompanies Hana to the E-rank Sumafuku dungeon. Rin is taken aback and loudly questions why they are there. Hana, startled, asks why he is shouting all of a sudden. Rin asks if they were not going shopping, to which Hana responds that she thought she had explained everything. Plot twist, it's not a shopping spree, it's a dungeon crawl. In Japan, only those who are 18 years of age or older can challenge a dungeon. However, in recent years, skilled inspectors have begun to influence national power. As a result, from last year, those who are 17 years old or older, and from this year, in line with world standards, those who are 16 years old or older are now able to challenge themselves. Hana is over 16. Age is just a number, but in this case, it's a very important number. After meeting the age requirement, it would be beneficial to take a course sponsored by the association and obtain an adventurer license. After graduating from high school, it's different from when Rin took classes individually. Students can now take classes via high school, which is why Hana also decided to participate. Education is the key, even in the world of dungeons. Rin asks why Hana suddenly wants to go to the dungeon. Hana explains that those who participate through school have already taken a simple course and received provisional qualification. So, Hana went to the dungeon with the help of someone from the dungeon association. Rin tells Hana that he will be in trouble if she doesn't inform him first because of the cooldown. Hana is clueless about what a cooldown is, making Rin wonder if she really took the course. Hana grabs Rin and starts running, asking him to participate. Hana's enthusiasm is as infectious as a manga protagonist's. There are many people there because they are recruiting from a lot of different schools. Katajiri from the Dungeon Association announces to everyone to check their name if they are participating in practice. He also asks the partners who are accompanying them to show their status, as it doesn't matter if the display is just their name and level. Rin is shocked to hear this because even though Kazami and his friends, who have experienced over a year, have reached only level 2000, he fears that the secret of his dungeon teleportation will be exposed if people find out his level is over 5000. Rin wonders how to trick them and asks Hana to wait while he shows her his status screen. Rin's got more secrets than a hidden treasure chest in a dungeon. Rin discovers a list of new skills and acquires Conceal level 1. Conceal is an advanced skill that allows players to rewrite their status information. However, if a player misuses it to infiltrate a party with a lower rank than they should have, with a fake status, they can steal goods and belongings, or even parasitize on parties that are higher than they are. Therefore, acquiring this forbidden skill is generally prohibited. Rin's got more tricks up his sleeve than a seasoned magician. In fact, there's no way to ascertain who possesses the Conceal skill. If a player merely possesses it, they won't be charged with a crime. Rin, who doesn't intend to cause anyone trouble, decides to rewrite his status board. Hana asks if Rin is done yet, and after that, they approach Katajiri. Rin introduces himself as Hana's brother and says he came with her today. Katajiri asks to check Rin's status. Rin shows his status, which is at level 1034. Katajiri assures them that they won't have to worry about entering an E-rank dungeon with Rin's level. He also mentions that even if something happens, there's no need to worry as Katajiri himself is over level 7000. The association has also brought in young people who are C-rank and above, including Yanagi, a C-rank adventurer. Katajiri introduces Yanagi to them, and Rin and Yanagi shake hands. Rin asks if there is any problem, but Yanagi assures him that everything is okay and leaves. Rin's got more connections than a social media influencer. Katajiri asks everyone to change into their equipment. Hana changes into the battle equipment provided by the association, while Rin changes through his item box. Hana tells Rin that in the preparatory course, they prepared something suitable for each of them. Rin feels a bit jealous because the association prepared everything, unlike in his case. Everyone then enters the dungeon. Rin's got more envy than a green-eyed monster. This dungeon is one of the dungeons Rin grinded the other day, so he decides to pretend to enter the dungeon and use his teleportation skill. They move to an open space, and their challenge to get the status board begins. A status can be acquired when one defeats a monster for the first time, but there's only a 10% chance for the status board to appear. Everyone is very nervous and eager to get the status board, as these few minutes can change their whole life. Rin's got more anticipation than a kid on Christmas Eve. Rin tells Hana not to be nervous because whether she gets a status or not is pure luck and it won't change anything. Hana blushes, laughs, and tells Rin that if he wants to encourage her, he should do it till the end. Hana feels better now, thinking of him. Rin, the motivational speaker. Rin asks why Hana wants to be an adventurer, but she doesn't hear him. Hana, the focused adventurer. Katajiri announces that 3 people will be assigned to each staff to find a monster, and the rest of them are going on standby. However, if they have a companion of D rank or higher, they can act with that person and ask those who have acquired a status to come and report to him. Rin asks Hana which she is going to choose, and Hana replies that she doesn't like being seen by others and decides to go with Rin. In the dungeon, they encounter a slime while walking. Slime is a level 1 monster, a magical creature characterized by a fluid and transparent body. Rin and Hana, the dynamic duo. Rin instructs Hana to destroy the red sphere in the slime. Hana pierces it with her dagger and obtains a status board. Hana is very surprised and happy. Rin tells Hana that her future will be determined by the skills they acquired. Hana opens her status to see what kind of skills she acquired and is amazed looking at the status board. Rin wonders what kind of skills Hana might have, but he is surprised when he sees that Hana has body reinforcement LV3, magic manipulation LV3, magic increase LV5. She also has a skill imitation LV1. Rin has never seen this skill before, which means that it's a unique skill. Hana, the skillful prodigy.
Imagine grinding away in a dungeon every day to level up, only to find out that a new friend gets a unique skill purely by chance. It's frustrating, right? But Rin didn't feel that way when he discovered that Hana had acquired a unique skill no one else had. He knew unique skills could have incredible effects, so he immediately checked it out. The status board revealed it was almost like a cheat skill with astonishing effects. Hana's skill imitation, lets her copy other skills, with the number and duration of copies increasing as she levels up. There's no limit to the skill level she can copy. She can use advanced abilities at lower levels, while others would need to reach level 100 or more. In a party, she can adapt by borrowing skills from members, becoming a swordsman, tank, or wizard as needed. She might even be able to copy Rin's dungeon teleportation skill in the future, enabling them to level up together. Though they couldn't do that now due to level restrictions, it was clear that it could be possible eventually. Hana, puzzled by Rin's reaction, asked if her new skill was good or bad. Instead of going into the details, Rin put it simply. If Hana revealed her skill, every guild in Japan would be eager to recruit her. Hana was surprised by how powerful her skill was, but expressed concern about the trouble it might bring. Rin then asked why she had chosen to become an adventurer in the first place. Hana blushed and accused Rin of trying to uncover a girl's secret. Rin suggested that if she wanted to keep her skill hidden, she shouldn't tell Giri-san, or the secret might spread. Hana was worried because she knew that showing her status board when they left the dungeon would reveal her unique skill. Rin suddenly had an idea. He suggested she use her skill imitation to copy his concealment skill. By touching Rin's shoulder, she instantly acquired the concealment skill. Hana quickly learned to use it to hide her unique skill. Next, she copied other skills, setting them all to level 1 to avoid complications. With that sorted, they were ready to return to the others. Rin advised Hana to keep the concealment skill a secret as well, since it wasn't one he actually owned. When she asked why he had such a skill, he simply said they'd discuss it later. As they were about to leave, Rin sensed a menacing presence deep within the dungeon, so they quickly exited. Outside, the adventurers who had completed their tasks were celebrating their achievements. Hana showed her status board to the instructor, who congratulated her on making it back safely and gaining new skills. Giri announced that those who had obtained their status would need to participate in a dungeon class in 2 weeks. Until then, they would have provisional qualifications and could only enter the dungeon if accompanied by someone with at least 1 year of adventuring experience. Giri also advised against going into the dungeon alone. After Giri left, Rin praised Hana for her hard work and congratulated her on her new status. Hana, excited, asked him for a reward. Rin offered to take her to the city center later for dinner, assuring her that he would cover the cost. Rin mentioned he was making a lot of money lately and could afford to buy whatever Hana wanted. He even offered to join her for a dungeon run before her next practice if she was interested. Hana eagerly accepted and planned to visit the dungeon the next day. As they walked through the city happily, an unseen presence watched them from afar, keeping a close eye on their every move. The following day, Rin explored the Mangeshi dungeon in the morning, raising his level by 4 points. He managed to complete 100 laps, level up 420 times, and clear 7 dungeons. When he checked the time, he realized it was time to meet Hana and headed back immediately. Upon arriving at the entrance of the E-rank Cheyenne dungeon, Rin saw that Hana had brought 2 other girls with her. Recognizing them as Yui and Rei, he asked why they were there. Yui, excited, said she was thrilled to join the dungeon expedition, while Rei, in her usual cold manner, mentioned she had decided to join on a whim. Hana reminded Rin about their shortage of time, but Rin asked Yui and Rei again about their purpose for being there since he didn't get a clear answer the first time. Instead of waiting for them to respond, Hana decided to clear the confusion. She explained that she had invited Yui yesterday because every time she contacted Yui, she always asked about Rin. So, Hana thought it would be a good idea to bring her along. Embarrassed, Yui scolded Hana for revealing her little love secret and told Rin not to believe her words. To avoid making things more awkward, Rin shifted his attention towards Rei and asked her why she was there. In her usual cold tone, Rei said that she had heard from Yui and, because Rin was going to be there, she decided to come. This made Rin blush, as he thought it was finally his time to be popular among these cute girls. Rei handed him an envelope and told him it was the money she had promised to return. She had come there specifically to give it back to him. Both Yui and Hana overreacted, saying that making a girl pay him money was the worst thing to do. Embarrassed, Rin tried to explain that it wasn't true and asked Rei for help in clearing his name. Rei smiled, with a sparkle in her eyes, and told them that Rin was an important person to her and that it was thanks to him that she was there now. Giving him money was something she wanted to do. Unintentionally, she was making matters worse by not explaining the actual reason she was giving him the money. Finally, Rei explained everything in detail, which cleared up all the misunderstandings about him quickly. Rin playfully scolded Yui for not believing him earlier, and the matter was finally resolved. Rei apologized for not choosing the right place to give him the money. Rin told Rei not to worry about it, and asked how she managed to make such a large amount of money in a short period of time. Rei explained that for the past week, she had been single-mindedly hunting high-earning monsters, and used that time to reevaluate herself. Feeling a bit jealous, Yui expressed that she had been watching them closely and thought Rei and Rin seemed quite close. She jumped to the silly conclusion that they must be secretly dating. The conversation got even funnier when Yui started blushing like a tomato at Rin's comment about being friends with all of them, because apparently, Rin was more than just a friend to her. It was a little embarrassing for Rin, but he decided to leave it before things escalated further. Rin whispered to Hana about her imitation skill, but Hana reassured him that since he trusted Yui and Rei, she was okay with him knowing about her unique skill. She had full confidence in his judgment. This was a bit of a shock for Rin, seeing how much Hana trusted him. He still hadn't explained to her the true value of the dungeon, but now wasn't the time. He knew that revealing her skill without proper support or backing could be dangerous. While it was one thing if they were just fighting for him, there was also the risk of being targeted by people who saw him as an enemy. If Rin revealed Hana's skill without strong backing, it could put her in harm's way. He knew that, in the worst-case scenario, she could be targeted or hurt. Instead, Rin wanted to protect Hana and, as long as he had strong support, he might reveal his true power later. For now, it was not an option. Seeing him lost in thought, Hana called out his name, bringing him back to reality. He told her they should start by discussing her skill imitation, but first, he wanted to explain the skill to Yui and Rei for clarity. Yui, impressed by the details, praised Hana's imitation skill, noting that it was to be expected from Rin's younger sister. Enthusiastic as ever, Yui jumped in excitement, saying that unique skills were amazing, and it was surprising that there were two people with them. In her excitement, Yui let slip that Rin also had a unique skill, and she remarked on how the two siblings seemed so bright because of their unique abilities. This was news to both Rei and Hana, who stood there in shock. Yui, realizing her mistake, was left dumbfounded, unsure of how to cover for herself. Hana was curious if Rei had a unique skill as well. Rei confirmed she did and said she would demonstrate it. She stepped forward and activated her magic. A dazzling light enveloped her from all sides, signaling that something spectacular was about to happen. She pronounced the word quatrette, and instantly, four swords appeared out of thin air, floating elegantly before them. She explained that she could create as many swords as she wished with ease. The display captivated all three of them, leaving them impressed by Rei's grace and skill. Rei then asked Rin what he planned to do next. Rin said he wanted to test skill imitation. Rei suggested trying an offensive skill for a quick performance check. However, Rin knew that Hana could only copy level 1 skills at this point, and the only level 1 skill he had was concealment. Fortunately, with Yui and Rei there, Rin mentally thanked Hana for unintentionally creating a perfect chance. He asked Yui and Rei if Hana could copy their level 1 skills. Both girls exchanged a knowing look, then smiled and closed their eyes in agreement, as if they had silently coordinated their response. Yui said she didn't have any attack skills, while Rei mentioned that she only had level 2 and higher skills, so Rin's request for their help was quickly dismissed. He wondered what to do next when Yui offered an idea. She opened her status board and acquired a level 1 elementary magic skill. Although Rin suggested she didn't need to force herself to acquire skills just to help his little sister, Yui explained that she had heard from her senior guild members that having at least one attack skill was important for self-defense. It also worked to her advantage, and besides, she had just passed level 150 the other day. Rin was impressed by how quickly Yui had progressed, especially considering she was only level 80. Yui excitedly talked about her guild, Night Moon, and how they had taught her to level up efficiently. Then, with a mischievous grin, she mentioned a really cool senior in the guild who had taught her magic and was only 2 years older than Rin, hoping to make him jealous. However, contrary to her expectations, Rin didn't seem to mind at all. This frustrated Yui, but Rin, with a gentle smile, told her he was happy she was able to acquire elementary magic. Her frustration melted away as she felt the warmth of his appreciation. With the perfect skill now available for Hana to imitate, Rin suggested they test the skill imitation right away. Yui and Hana joined hands, and Hana activated her skill imitation. Hana expressed her excitement at finally being able to copy Yui's skill. Just then, a pack of lesser wolves, level 5, arrived. Yui eagerly asked if she could handle them. She used her fireball magic and defeated the lesser wolves with a single, powerful blow. Next was Hana's turn. Nervously, she took a few steps forward to attack the lesser wolves. Just like Yui, Hana cast her fireball, but her fireball was so small that it barely left a scratch on the wolves. Hana panicked, fearing the lesser wolves would now attack her. However, Rin quickly stepped in as the big hero and positioned himself between Hana and the wolf, taking it down swiftly. Hana thanked her big brother for saving her, as always. Rin realized that Hana's skill imitation couldn't match the power of the original magic. The effectiveness of the skill was determined by both the skill level and the caster's ability. It was natural that Hana's magic, being at a lower level, was less powerful. A bit disappointed, Hana questioned the true power of her unique skill, which was supposed to be exceptionally amazing. Rin explained that, on the contrary, it meant that the skills would grow stronger as Hana's level increased. Some skills have fixed damage based on skill level, but ultimately, it all depended on how Hana used the skill. Hana realized that to become stronger, she would need to put in a lot of effort, and she was fully committed to doing so. Rin confirmed her determination and decided to start by teaching her the basics of adventuring. Just then, another pack of lesser wolves, having detected their presence from afar, appeared. This time, Hana stepped forward with even greater enthusiasm and determination. Rin assessed the situation and noted that Rei was skilled in close to medium-range combat. Yui excelled at supporting from a distance, and Hana had the potential to handle both roles. The team balance was surprisingly effective, and with a tank, the party could become quite powerful. However, Rin knew that such a setup was unlikely due to their differing levels and Yui's guild affiliation, so he considered it more of a distant fantasy than a practical reality. After that, he worked for about an hour, successfully wrapping up a fulfilling day. The next day, they were set to explore the dungeon again, and a week later, the moment they had been waiting for finally arrived. At the bottom floor of a C-rank Nimi dungeon, he completed the dungeon the required number of times, earning a 25 level bonus increase. From that point on, even if he cleared the dungeon again, there would be no reward. He jumped in excitement, thrilled to have achieved his goal of clearing 10 dungeons. He shouted eagerly to Grace, asking what reward he would receive now that he had reached his target. Would it be an increase in effects or perhaps a new skill? His curiosity was at its peak. Without teleportation, it would have been nearly impossible for him to meet this goal, so he was genuinely hopeful for a significant reward. A voice echoed, announcing that the title holder had completed 10 dungeons and, as a reward, would be given the right to challenge the extra dungeon known as the Magic Tower of Isolation. Rin couldn't comprehend what was meant by an extra dungeon. The voice echoed again, stating that the target's current status had been recorded and that he could not advance to the next level until he challenged the Magic Tower of Isolation. It even mentioned that the internal conditions of the magic tower of isolation had been adjusted according to the target status. An error occurred, indicating that the magic tower of isolation didn't exist since Rin was the first ever subject to challenge this level. Suddenly, the ground began to shake violently. Rin thought it was an earthquake and struggled to maintain his balance. The voice echoed once more, and the magic tower of isolation was finally created. Out of nowhere, a piece of paper materialized and landed in Rin's hand. Upon examining it with his appraisal technique, he discovered it was a challenge ticket for the magic tower of isolation. Holding the ticket in his hand, Rin couldn't fully grasp the situation. The voice asked if he wanted to challenge the magic tower of isolation. Rin hesitated, uncertain if he should accept the invitation, especially since there was no obligation to do so. However, he realized he had no choice but to take on the challenge, as he couldn't progress to the next level until he faced the magic tower of isolation. Rin understood it was time to return, but first, he needed to figure out what exactly the magic tower of isolation was. He had never heard of such a place, and if he didn't know its location, there was no way he could go there. As he exited the dungeon, Rin noticed a crowd of adventurers gathered around, staring at something with wide eyes. Curious, he approached and discovered a massive tower standing in the middle of the city, a structure that hadn't been there before. The adventurers were just as bewildered as Rin, speculating on how the tower could have suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Some even guessed it might be a dungeon, but no one was certain of what it truly was. Rin was the only person in the world who knew exactly what the mysterious tower was and how it had appeared. It was the very same tower of isolation that he had heard about challenging in the dungeon earlier. With the challenge ticket in his hand, Rin boldly declared that he was going to face this new dungeon. His status board, displaying an impressive level of 6,604, confirmed his readiness for teleportation. The details of the sword he had equipped were also visible on the status screen, ensuring he was fully prepared. Later that night, Rin and his little sister, Hannah, sat in front of the TV, sipping tea as the news about the newly appeared tower dominated the headlines. The newscaster reported that, at the moment, there was no gate typically found at dungeon entrances, and no point of entry had been discovered. He added that there were many unanswered questions surrounding the tower, but no one had any answers yet. Rin knew it was the magic tower of isolation, but he had no idea why it had appeared. Everyone was curious about what secrets the dungeon held, but they knew that the only way to find out was to enter and explore it. Rin planned to attempt the dungeon the next day, even though it would be his first time entering a dungeon without any prior information. He understood the importance of being as thorough as possible, especially since he had no idea about the scale of this new dungeon. Thinking ahead, he decided it would be wise to pack some food for the journey. As Rin thought about everything, he turned to Hannah, who was sitting next to him on the couch. He told her that he would be going away for a few days starting tomorrow, deliberately leaving out the part about the magic tower of isolation. Hannah, curious and playful, asked where he was going and jokingly suggested that maybe he had a girlfriend, which was why he was keeping secrets from his little sister. She then asked how long he would be away, specifically wondering if he would be back in time for the dungeon training that was coming up soon. Rin was reminded of Hannah's formal adventurer certification week, where parents and guardians were allowed to accompany the participants. He promised her that he would do his best to return before then, so he could possibly attend. Hannah smiled and reassured him that he didn't need to worry too much about her, as she had learned a lot from him and his friends and felt confident that she could manage on her own for a while. However, Rin cautioned her not to be careless in the dungeon, no matter how much she had learned. The next day, Rin visited a store to prepare for his journey. He bought HP and MP recovery potions, giant exploding stones, and a new short sword, spending most of his savings, which amounted to over 50 million yen, on these necessities. After stocking up, he headed to the magic tower of isolation. Upon arrival, he encountered some unexpected guests, the Dungeon Association staff. But given the sudden appearance of such a mysterious tower in the city, it made sense that the association would be there to investigate. With no other choice, Rin activated his concealment magic and dashed closer to the tower, moving right in front of the staff like an invisible shadow. Wasting no time, he retrieved the ticket he had saved earlier from his inventory. He knew he could only enter the tower once with that ticket, so he carefully tore it in half. As he did, a bright light surrounded him, causing his heartbeat to quicken in anticipation of what this extra dungeon might hold. In the blink of an eye, Rin found himself standing in a vast, green expanse with nothing in sight. There were no visible walls or ceilings, giving the impression that he was in an open field rather than inside a tower. It felt as if the interior of the tower had been magically expanded. This was unlike any dungeon he had encountered before. To confirm his location, Rin decided to test his teleportation magic. He successfully teleported, confirming that he was indeed inside the dungeon, despite its strange appearance. He pondered his next move. In a typical tower, his goal would be to ascend to the top, but there were no stairs, and the sky above was empty. He was at a loss. Just then, the familiar voice of Grace echoed once more, announcing that Amain Rin had successfully entered the Magic Tower of Isolation. The Magic Tower of Isolation consisted of 10 levels, each presenting a unique quest that Rin would need to complete in order to advance to the next. The quest for the first level was the extermination of magic wolves, requiring him to defeat all the monsters on that level. Rin couldn't help but feel a bit like he was in a game, where clearing each stage would eventually lead to a reward. To get started, he activated his enemy search skill and quickly sensed 5 monsters a short distance ahead. The data indicated that they were moving at an incredibly high speed. It didn't take long for Rin to realize that all 5 were heading straight for him. He saw clouds of dust rising in the distance, confirming that these were indeed fire wolves, charging at him with intense bloodlust. The sight triggered memories of his last encounter with fire wolves in the Maru dungeon, where he had fought countless numbers of them to summon the King Rainbow. But there was no time to dwell on the past. His immediate task was to defeat these monsters. Before engaging, Rin used his appraisal skill to check the wolves' levels, and to his shock, they were at level 4000. For regular wolves, this was incredibly high, far more formidable than he had anticipated. The fire wolves were covered in thick, red fur, giving them excellent fire resistance. Their agile movements and the flames they breathed from their mouths were exceptionally powerful. The fact that their levels were so high, much higher than he had ever imagined, took Rin by surprise. The wolves he had fought before were around level 1000, but these were on a completely different scale, true beasts in every sense. Despite the daunting challenge, Rin knew he had no choice but to face them. Steeling himself for the upcoming battle, he gripped his sword tightly and dashed toward the wolves, who were rapidly closing in on him. His mind was set on ending the fight as quickly as possible. Even though he was equipped with the Ring of Maru, which granted him some protection, the wolves' magic attacks still inflicted damage. His best strategy was to take them down before they could launch any significant attack. Rin swiftly struck down the first wolf, then the second, and continued with the same ferocity until all 5 were defeated. However, when he tried to collect the spoils of victory, he realized that was not possible in this dungeon, a restriction he hadn't anticipated. Though he had managed to defeat these 5 wolves, he knew the challenge was far from over. The thought of facing a larger pack, possibly 10 or more wolves, or even encountering other types of monsters mixed in with them, troubled him deeply. He couldn't help but wonder just how many wolves, and what other dangers, might be lurking within this hierarchy. The first battle had been tough, but it was likely only a taste of what was to come. Rin was confident he could handle 100 or even 200 wolves, but he knew things would get complicated if their numbers exceeded 500. As a solo player, he found it easier to take down a single, powerful monster rather than face an endless horde of weaker ones. Catching himself before he could dwell on the difficulties, he reminded himself not to whine or complain. Instead, he resolved to tackle the challenge head-on and complete the quest as quickly as possible. Just as he regained his focus, the ground beneath him began to shake violently, resembling an earthquake. Puzzled, Rin looked around, trying to figure out what was happening. He noticed a massive cloud of dust in the distance, and it didn't take him long to realize that something dangerous was headed his way. A massive horde of fire wolves was racing toward him at an incredible speed, making survival seem almost impossible. In a flash, the harsh reality of his situation set in. He needed to defeat a total of 5,000 monsters to clear this level, and so far, he had only managed to take down 5. The wolves quickly surrounded him, forming a tight circle as Rin stood in the middle, tears welling up in his eyes as he fully grasped the enormity of the challenge before him. It was as if his personal nightmare had just begun. Rin began slaying the wolves one by one, and with each kill, he gained a single XP in return. The sword he wielded, aptly named the Speed Sword, proved to be a fortunate purchase before his journey to the magic Tower of Isolation. Crafted by an adventurer with blacksmithing skills, this sword was especially effective against low-level enemies, keeping his speed parameters high and allowing him to adapt swiftly. Using Nameless, his more powerful weapon, would have been overkill in this situation. As he continued the fight, Rin noticed that this time the wolf pack was composed of mixed types, including earth wolves and water wolves. Even though each individual attack from the wolves dealt only a small amount of damage, it began to accumulate, and his HP dropped dangerously close to 20%. Realizing the severity of the situation, Rin knew he had no choice but to use his high-speed movement ability, which boosted his speed by an additional 60% but cost him 10 MP per second. Although he wanted to conserve his MP, the relentless assault from the wolves left him no choice. He needed to defeat them as quickly as possible. With each wolf he defeated, his HP slightly increased by 1 point, providing a small but crucial buffer. Just as he began to gain some ground, the King Rainbow Wolf appeared, a formidable beast with a level over 7,000. This bull-type monster boasted multicolored fur that shimmered in a lustrous range of 9 shades. Despite its size, it possessed extraordinary agility and resilience, and it could attack with a variety of powerful magic. Rin braced himself for the next phase of the battle. He knew that defeating the King Rainbow Wolf would be far more challenging than the wolves he had faced so far, but he steeled himself, determined to overcome this formidable foe. The real test had just begun. Excited to finally face the challenge head-on, Rin drew his powerful Nameless Sword, ready to deal with the King Rainbow Wolves. With a manic expression, he channeled his frustration and determination into the fight. It didn't take long for him to defeat the King Rainbow Wolves, and he saw his XP increase by 10 levels. However, he had only completed about 20% of the quest, having defeated 1,023 monsters out of 5,000, and he had been fighting for over an hour. Feeling the strain, Rin gulped down some recovery potions to restore his HP and MP. After replenishing his resources, he had 3,610 SP available. He used this to level up his magic power skill from level 2 to level 5, which added 50% to his MP. This upgrade allowed him to activate his high-speed movement for longer periods, enabling him to use it more liberally during combat. As the second horde of wolves approached, Rin knew he needed to stay on the offensive. Letting the wolves take the initiative would be disastrous. He needed to maintain the upper hand from start to finish, ensuring he didn't let his guard down. To prepare for the next round, Rin slapped his cheeks to refocus himself and braced for another intense bout of fighting. As time wore on, Rin's sense of time became blurred. He had lost count of how many wolves he had defeated. The third and fourth hours had passed in rapid succession. His hands were growing numb from the constant swinging of his sword, but he pressed on, driven by necessity. He pondered the nature of adventuring. Typically, adventurers would challenge enemies that matched their skill level, a standard approach that ensured a fair fight. Yet, there were those who ventured beyond their comfort zones. He wasn't referring to rank A adventurers, the elite of the elite, but rather to those who surpassed even them. These higher-tier adventurers took on extremely difficult dungeons daily, where facing unexpected situations was the norm. They constantly battled monsters stronger than those Rin had encountered, embodying the true essence of dungeon challenges. In the final moments of a battle, where even the slightest carelessness could result in death, only those who truly overcame these trials were rewarded with valuable prizes. Rin felt his heartbeat quicken as excitement surged within him. He realized that he was not just challenging a dungeon. He was taking on something that no one had ever faced before. His dream of becoming a top adventurer had always been to not just catch up to the S-rank adventurers, the pinnacle of the field, but to surpass them and become the strongest in the world. This was not just about achieving a goal. It was about not accepting defeat and pushing beyond the limits. His determination surged as he embraced the challenge, knowing that only by overcoming this trial could he hope to reach his ultimate goal. Rin's resolve was unshakable. He knew there was no stopping now or allowing himself to fall in such a place. Fueled by determination and excitement, he shouted with conviction, vowing to clear this level. His XP steadily increased as he continued to defeat the monsters one by one. After 5 grueling hours of relentless combat, Rin finally completed the level 1 quest of Magic Wolf Extermination. He had successfully defeated all 5,000 monsters, and his hard work was rewarded. His level increased by 50, bringing his personal level from 6,604 to a staggering 6,900. In total, he had gained 296 levels by the end of the first quest. Exhausted, Rin collapsed onto the grass, feeling a mix of exhilaration and fatigue. His body was completely worn out, and he realized that he was in no condition to continue fighting in his current state. He needed rest. Just as he began to relax, the familiar voice echoed once more, announcing that he had cleared the first quest and was now eligible to challenge level 2. He faced a critical decision. He could either proceed to challenge level 2 within the next 24 hours or choose to retire. If he chose to retire, he would not be able to attempt the Magic Tower of Isolation again, but he would be granted a full 24 hours of rest. This was a crucial choice, one that would determine whether he continued to push forward while exhausted or took the time to recover before facing the next challenge. Rin contemplated his next move carefully. Ideally, he would have preferred to teleport out, level up in other dungeons, and return to challenge the next level with ease. However, this wasn't a typical dungeon, and there was no guarantee he would be able to re-enter, or that the next level would even appear if he left. Given the high difficulty of the dungeon, the rewards promised to be exceptional, and Rin was determined to secure them. Thus, the only logical choice was to recover both his mental and physical strength before tackling the next level. He opened his item box and retrieved some energy drinks and food, though his appetite was lacking. Despite this, he forced himself to eat to regain his strength. After eating, he decided to rest, but as he closed his eyes, he found the bright sky too glaring for him to sleep. Frustrated, Rin called out to the system, asking if it could adjust the brightness of the sky. To his surprise, the sky transformed into a serene night sky, filled with stars and a glowing moon. The system's response was unexpected and seemed to show a degree of kindness. However, Rin was wary. He recognized that the system might be employing a psychological tactic to manipulate his perception, especially after he had been pushed to the brink. Determined not to be deceived, he reminded himself that the system was unreliable. In his irritation, he shouted at the system, calling it trash. Consequently, the sky reverted to its bright, glaring state with the sun shining directly overhead. Rin, despite his exhaustion and frustration, knew he had to stay focused and cautious. With his mindset, he prepared to recover and regroup before facing the next challenge in the Magic Tower of Isolation. After apologizing to the system and requesting the night sky again, Rin managed to get some much-needed rest. Following a solid 10 hours of sleep, he woke up with his HP and MP nearly restored and his body feeling revitalized. Confident in his recovered state, he prepared to face the next level. With no visible stairs to indicate how to advance, Rin was unsure how to proceed. The system's voice reappeared, asking him to state his choice, whether to challenge level 2 or retire. Rin chose to challenge level 2 out loud. The voice confirmed his choice, and he was enveloped in a bright light, which soon dissipated to reveal a large, empty room with visible walls and ceiling. Rin was still within the same dungeon, but was puzzled by the setup. The system announced that the quest for level 2 was to defeat the Reflect Knight. As Rin turned around, he saw the Reflect Knight standing behind him, resembling the nameless knight he had encountered in another dungeon. Rin used his appraisal skill to check the Reflect Knight's level and was shocked to discover that it was exactly 6,604, the same as his own. This mirrored his own stats, meaning that the Reflect Knight was a direct reflection of himself and the nameless knight he had faced in a previous dungeon. The system had informed him that he could not advance to the next level until he defeated the Reflect Knight, making it a crucial part of his challenge. Determined to face this powerful foe, Rin braced himself for battle, unsure of how the Reflect Knight would attack. To his astonishment, the Reflect Knight was exceptionally fast. In the blink of an eye, it was mere centimeters away from Rin's face. Rin understood that this speed was likely due to the speed sword he wielded, which was designed to enhance his own speed and stats against higher-level opponents. Despite his advantage, the Reflect Knight's speed and power were overwhelming. The Reflect Knight's level of 6,604 was already significant, but the sword's boost had brought its stats close to those of a level 10,000 opponent. This made it an incredibly worthy adversary. Rin lifted his sword, aiming to turn the Reflect Knight into a training dummy for his own practice. However, the fight quickly proved to be far more challenging than he had anticipated. From the outset of the battle, Rin employed both super strength and super speed, augmenting his physical attributes by 60%. Despite these enhancements, he found himself struggling to close the gap between himself and the Reflect Knight. The Reflect Knight seemed to match Rin's every move, demonstrating that it too was equipped with super strength and super speed. This realization made the situation even more complicated. Rin's usual advantage of speed, which had always been a decisive factor in his previous battles against higher-ranked enemies, was proving ineffective against the Reflect Knight. This adversary was not only as fast as he was, but also as strong, nullifying Rin's typical combat advantages. With the Reflect Knight's relentless assault putting him on the defensive, Rin knew he needed to adapt quickly. He had to find a way to counter this relentless foe and regain control of the battle. He needed to rethink his strategy and come up with a new plan to overcome this formidable opponent. Rin's mind raced as he considered his next move. His earlier attempts to leverage speed had proven ineffective, so he needed a new strategy to counter the Reflect Knight. The idea that formed was risky but potentially effective. Using the speed sword, which had been crafted by a skilled blacksmith to enhance both attack and speed significantly more than his other weapons. The speed sword had a passive effect that added plus 1,600 to Rin's speed, and by equipping it, he hoped to bridge the speed gap between himself and the Reflect Knight. The challenge now was not just to keep up with the knight, but to find a way to counterattack effectively. Rin took a moment to think and realized he needed to exploit any advantage he had over the Reflect Knight. He had a sudden flash of inspiration and quickly opened his item box. He retrieved the exploding stones he had purchased earlier. With these, he hoped to create some distance and disorient the Reflect Knight. Rin hurled the exploding stones toward the Reflect Knight. The resulting explosions created a dense cloud of smoke, obscuring his presence and providing him with temporary cover. Rin seized the opportunity to use his conceal magic, hoping to remain hidden while the knight was momentarily confused. However, Rin soon sensed another presence. The Reflect Knight was using enemy search magic to detect his location despite his concealment. The Reflect Knight's ability to counter his conceal magic meant that Rin's plan to hide was failing. Realizing he couldn't rely on concealment alone, Rin quickly assessed his situation. The Reflect Knight's ability to find him even in the smoke was a clear indication that it was highly adept at using magic to track opponents. Rin needed to find another way to gain the upper hand. He decided to use the cover of the smoke to his advantage. He maneuvered around the battlefield, attempting to stay out of the Reflect Knight's direct line of sight while preparing for his next attack. Rin's strategy was to strike decisively when he found an opening, using the speed sword to maximize his attack speed and exploit any weaknesses he could find in the Reflect Knight's defense. The smoke began to clear, and Rin knew that the time for his next move was approaching. He had to be ready to adapt quickly to the knight's reactions and find a way to outmaneuver it. Rin refused to be disheartened by the Reflect Knight's advantage and continued to use his strategy of throwing exploding stones, creating smoke and confusion to mask his presence. Each time the Reflect Knight tried to locate him using enemy search magic, Rin would dodge and reapply conceal magic, staying out of sight. The battle dragged on for an hour, with Rin's efforts steadily wearing down the knight. Eventually, he noticed a significant development. The Reflect Knight had exhausted its MP. Without its magical resources, the knight could no longer utilize super strength or super speed, two crucial advantages it had used to outpace and overpower Rin. With this crucial shift in the battle dynamics, Rin decided it was time to capitalize on the Reflect Knight's vulnerabilities. He quickly assessed his situation. His status had been improved by the level-ups he achieved on the first floor of the Magic Tower of Isolation, and he had also upgraded his magic power skill from level 2 to level 5. Rin realized that using these enhancements effectively could turn the tide of the battle in his favor. Determined to make the most of this opportunity, Rin decided to increase his super strength further. He used some of his SP to upgrade super strength from level 6 to 7, boosting his raw attack power significantly. With his new strength and the Reflect Knight's magical abilities neutralized, Rin prepared for a decisive attack. He gripped his nameless sword, the powerful weapon he had acquired earlier. Summoning all his strength and focus, Rin swung the sword with precision. The blade struck the Reflect Knight's neck with a powerful blow, slicing through it and cleaving the knight in two. The battle was over. Rin had defeated the Reflect Knight, and as a result, he received a substantial amount of XP, leading to a level increase of 26. Exhausted but triumphant, he took a moment to catch his breath and assess his condition, knowing that he had completed the challenge of the second level. Rin's triumph from defeating the Reflect Knight was short-lived as the system's announcement brought new challenges. The system declared that Rin had successfully completed the level 2 quest and rewarded him with a level increase of 100. His level now stood at an impressive 7026, and the total level increases within the Magic Tower of Isolation reached 422. He was now eager to tackle level 3. The teleportation process began once more, and Rin found himself in a new environment, a maze. The system announced that the level 3 quest was to navigate through the heavily besieged maze. A video window materialized in front of him, showing a path through the maze. The system explained that following the path depicted in the video would lead him to clear the quest. At first glance, the task seemed straightforward. However, Rin's instincts told him that things were rarely as simple as they seemed in high-difficulty dungeons. He couldn't shake the feeling that there might be hidden dangers or additional challenges that the system had not yet revealed. As he examined the maze, Rin prepared himself for potential traps, hidden enemies, or complex puzzles that might be lurking ahead. As Rin navigated through the heavily besieged maze of level 3, he encountered a formidable array of enemies. Skeleton magicians and knights with levels ranging from 6000 to 6500. These undead monsters, constructed entirely of bones, were formidable foes that wielded a variety of powerful magic attacks. They didn't flinch when attacked and engaged with relentless aggression. The skeleton magicians proved to be particularly troublesome. Their magic attacks were difficult to avoid in the narrow passages of the maze. Rin found himself in precarious situations, often surrounded and pincer-attacked by these relentless undead. Each time he was cornered, he felt the danger of imminent death. However, Rin's quick thinking and strategic use of his skills allowed him to navigate these challenges. His dungeon teleportation skill, at level 18, became crucial. It enabled him to teleport out of danger when he was surrounded, providing a way to escape the relentless assault of the undead monsters. This skill allowed him to avoid direct confrontations, conserving his energy and health. Despite his efforts, the maze proved to be more complex and expansive than he had initially anticipated. Wandering blindly through its labyrinthine corridors risked prolonging his ordeal and potentially leading him further away from his goal. He realized that aimless exploration would not be effective. Eventually, Rin noticed a significant concentration of monsters in one particular direction, suggesting that they were guarding something important. He surmised that this direction likely led to the goal of the quest. Determined to advance, Rin decided to confront this cluster of enemies. To approach this area, Rin activated his conceal magic, hoping to reduce the likelihood of being detected by the monsters. Even with this precaution, some encounters were inevitable. He braced himself for battle, knowing that the concentration of enemies ahead would be a serious challenge. Rin's strategy was to use his teleportation skills to bypass or mitigate the fights with the undead monsters while carefully advancing through the maze. As he continued, he remained vigilant and adaptable, ready to adjust his approach as needed to overcome the obstacles in his path and complete the quest. Rin's strategy to eliminate the undead monsters before they could call for reinforcements proved effective as he managed to reach the goal of level 3. However, just as he approached it, the situation worsened. A massive cluster of undead monsters was blocking his path, and to make matters worse, more monsters arrived from behind as reinforcements, leaving him with no escape. Despite using conceal magic, which had previously helped him avoid detection, the sudden appearance of additional enemies meant that Rin needed to adapt quickly. With no time to spare and realizing that he had to fight his way through, Rin took a bold step. He swung his sword with determination and charged towards the densely packed enemies. His plan was to break through their defenses using his speed and power, while conceal magic would help him get as close to the goal as possible before the undead monsters could unleash their magic attacks. As he approached the cluster of enemies, a skeleton magician cast a powerful fire attack aimed directly at him. The fireball's intensity made it clear that dodging it would be nearly impossible. In a moment of quick thinking, Rin decided to stand still, using a risky tactic. Just as the fireball was about to hit him, he used his dungeon teleportation skill to evade the attack. The fireball exploded where he had been standing, and Rin reappeared in a safer position, ready to continue his assault. With the immediate threat of the fire attack neutralized, Rin swung his sword with precision, cutting down the remaining undead monsters in a single, decisive move. The maze that had been heavily besieged now lay clear before him. As soon as the last of the undead fell, the system's voice announced that Rin had completed the level 3 quest, Heavily Besieged Maze. The clearance reward for this level was a significant increase in his level by 150. Rin took a moment to catch his breath, relieved and satisfied with his accomplishment. His level was now at 7176, and he had successfully cleared another challenging level of the Magic Tower of Isolation. With renewed determination, Rin prepared himself for the next challenge, ready to face whatever awaited him in level 4. With level 3 cleared, Rin had now gained a total of 587 levels within the Magic Tower of Isolation. He had successfully navigated the challenges of the level 3 maze. Suddenly, 4 pedestals appeared before him, each showing signs that something had once belonged there. Even more intriguing were the 4 gates in front of him, each emanating an extraordinary concentration of mana, far surpassing any auras he had encountered before. Clearly, the difficulty of level 4 was going to be a significant step up from what he had faced so far. The system's voice echoed once more, announcing the level 4 quest, the Jewel of Death Beasts. To complete this quest, Rin needed to reach a designated location by breaking through a magical barrier. Behind each gate in level 4 was a fearsome death beast. Death beasts of fire, ice, lightning, and wind, each guarding their own jewel. Rin's objective was to steal each jewel and place it on the corresponding pedestal to nullify the magic attribute of the barrier. The death beasts guarding these jewels were all at a formidable level of 50,000. This level had a special rule allowing players to retire midway, but with the caveat that if they chose to retire, they could never attempt the Magic Tower of Isolation again. Initially, Rin was panicked upon learning that the death beasts were all level 50,000, but he quickly reassured himself. The quest did not require him to defeat these beasts. His primary goal was to reach the designated location by breaking through the magical barrier. He realized that it wasn't necessary to steal the jewels either. If he could somehow withstand the magical attacks, he might be able to make it through the barrier and clear the level. However, this approach seemed almost impossible given the circumstances. Facing this daunting challenge, Rin considered retiring, but he quickly dismissed the idea. He recognized that this was likely a tactic by the system to deter him, but quitting was not an option. He reaffirmed his commitment to his vow, to make decisions on his own terms and adhere to his own will. Even if the quest was designed to be lethal, he resolved not to back down. Rin was determined to clear the quest and complete it faster than anyone else in the world. Around 250 seconds later, the system announced that the level 4 quest, the Jewel of Death Beasts, had been completed. As a reward for clearing the level, Rin's level increased by 200. He had successfully and effortlessly navigated through the magical barrier, thanks to his dungeon teleportation skill. The system also granted him a bonus reward for his performance in level 4. A small bottle containing a bright, liquid potion appeared in his hand. Upon using his appraisal skill, Rin discovered that it was a complete recovery potion, which would fully restore both HP and MP. This was a surprising find, as most dungeon rewards for healing potions only restored up to 50% of HP or MP. This potion seemed to have no level limit and could potentially be worth millions of yen if sold. However, as a solo player, Rin saw potions as a vital resource and decided to keep it in his item box for personal use. After a brief rest and using his purification magic, level 1, to clean himself, Rin proceeded to the level 5 of the Magic Tower of Isolation. The system announced that this level was called Wise Man's Struggle. Judging by the name, Rin anticipated that the quest would test his intelligence. Just as he prepared himself for the challenge, a gorilla appeared in front of him. Using his appraisal skill, Rin discovered that the gorilla was actually level 1000. Realizing that the quest's name, Wise Man's Struggle, was misleading, he understood that the challenge was purely combat-focused. The quest required him to complete it without using any weapons to earn additional rewards. Rin accepted the challenge and decided to fight the gorilla using only his bare hands. After a grueling hand-to-hand battle, Rin managed to defeat the powerful gorilla. As a result, his level increased by 189. And with the completion of level 5, Wise Man's Struggle, his level rose further by 250. He also received a bonus reward, the title Wiser Wise Man. This title granted a plus 50% increase to attack, defense, and speed when no weapon was equipped. With his level progressing rapidly, Rin felt confident about his future challenges. He steadily advanced through the Magic Tower of Isolation, clearing levels 6 through 9. Level 6, named Evasion, presented a new kind of challenge. Rin was trapped in a 50-meter square floor and had to evade magic attacks coming from all directions for 30 minutes straight. As Rin progressed through the second half of the quests, both his physical and mental strengths were tested. For level 6, Evasion, Rin faced a grueling 30-minute challenge of avoiding magic attacks from all directions. The quest took a toll on him, but upon completion, he received a level increase of 300 and the bonus reward Evasion, which further enhanced his ability to avoid attacks. Additionally, he obtained a magic severance medicine, which, when consumed, would reduce all magic-related damage by 99% for 10 seconds. This item proved to be a valuable asset, potentially turning the tide in future battles. Level 7 tested Rin's stamina and strength. The quest resembled Level 1's challenge, requiring him to face an endless stream of monsters. Rin equipped his nameless sword and systematically defeated the monsters, gaining 1 XP per kill. Successfully completing this level rewarded him with a level increase of 350. Level 8 was a test of intellectual ability, requiring more than just brute force. This quest took Rin a considerable amount of time to clear, as it demanded careful thought and strategy. The clearance reward was a significant level increase of 400. Level 9 presented a challenge similar to Level 6, with an onslaught of magic attacks. Rin prepared himself for the difficult quest, knowing that he needed to use all his skills and strategies to succeed. Rin faced Level 9 with its most challenging configuration yet. Unlike Level 6, this level required him to defeat several monsters, each around level 10,000. This made it the hardest level by far in the dungeon. As Rin engaged in battle, his XP climbed rapidly, outpacing even the gains he achieved through dungeon teleportation. By the time he completed Level 9, his level had increased by 450. The bonus reward was a skill called Revitalize, which activated automatically when his HP fell to 30% or lower. This skill boosted his attack, speed, and intelligence the lower his HP dropped, though Rin hoped he would never need to use it as it indicated dire circumstances. With level 9 cleared, Rin took a short nap and made final preparations for level 10. He had accumulated 12,510 SP and contemplated how best to use it. He considered leveling up his teleportation skill, currently at level 19, but was unsure of its battle effectiveness. Instead, he decided to enhance his super strength to level 9 and super speed to level 10. He also used the remaining 3,010 SP to advance his magic power skill from level 5 to level 7. With his stats bolstered and his skills upgraded, Rin was now ready to tackle the final challenge of the Magic Tower of Isolation, level 10. With his preparations complete, Rin faced the final challenge of the Magic Tower of Isolation. The system teleported him to a vast area covered in dust and rocks, where visibility was limited and the terrain was uneven. As Rin took in his surroundings, he felt a powerful presence behind him. Turning around, he saw a colossal wolf-like creature with its body covered in sharp thorns, radiating a menacing aura. The creature, known as the King of Lightning, stood several times larger than Rin and let out a deafening roar that shook the very ground beneath him. Its level was a staggering 20,000. There were no exits or side doors in this arena, indicating that the only way out was to defeat the King of Lightning. Rin's determination solidified as he realized the gravity of the situation. It was a do-or-die battle. Armed with his nameless sword and fully aware of the enormity of the task ahead, Rin prepared himself for the ultimate fight. The King of Lightning was unlike any foe Rin had ever faced, its massive size making it difficult to target vital points. Recognizing the challenge, Rin decided to leverage his speed to his advantage. His plan was to use his agility to entangle the creature's limbs, hoping that disrupting its stance would create an opening for a decisive strike. With resolve burning in his eyes, Rin charged towards the King of Lightning, ready to face the fiercest opponent he had encountered in his journey through the Magic Tower of Isolation. Rin was initially surprised to find that the King of Lightning was even faster than him, rendering his speed advantage nearly worthless. Not only did the beast have incredible speed, but it also followed up attacks with ease, making it a formidable opponent. The only vulnerable spot Rin could identify was the creature's defenseless underside, but as soon as he aimed for it, his plan faced immediate setbacks. His blade seemed to rebound from an invisible barrier, accompanied by a cracking sound that hinted at an additional defense. Upon closer examination, Rin realized that the King of Lightning was surrounded by an invisible barrier, which was not impenetrable but needed repeated attacks to break through. This insight refocused his strategy. He would need to relentlessly strike the same spot until the barrier gave way. As Rin prepared to execute his new approach, the King of Lightning roared loudly, causing the ground to shake. Moments later, a lightning attack struck, creating a gaping hole in the ground. Rin barely managed to dodge the attack, but he knew that the lightning strikes would continue. He had detected traces of mana preceding each strike, but predicting the exact moments and locations of the attacks was proving difficult. Determined to find a way to overcome the barrier and survive the relentless lightning strikes, Rin adjusted his tactics. He focused on striking the same spot repeatedly to weaken the barrier while staying vigilant to dodge the incoming lightning attacks. Each attack needed to be precise and timed well to avoid the powerful electrical assaults, all while maintaining his assault on the barrier to create an opening for a decisive strike. Realizing that he had to stay alert to the King of Lightning's mana flow and spellcasting, Rin focused on his enemy search skill to track any changes in the magical energy around the creature. Although utilizing this skill over a wide range drained a significant amount of his mana, Rin was determined to defeat the King of Lightning before his own resources were exhausted. With renewed resolve, Rin dashed towards the King of Lightning, nameless sword in hand. The barrier around the beast was visibly cracking, signaling that his relentless attacks were making an impact. However, sensing another lightning strike about to be unleashed, Rin used his enemy search skill once more. This time, he was alarmed to see not just a flow of mana, but a massive magic circle forming in the sky directly above the King of Lightning. The intensity of the magic circle was far beyond anything he had encountered before, and it appeared to be preparing a devastating spell. Recognizing that staying within its range would spell disaster, Rin quickly maneuvered to a safer position. His plan was to wait until the spell was cast, hoping that the King of Lightning would be momentarily vulnerable. As anticipated, the lightning strike from the magic circle was far more powerful than previous attacks. The ground was scorched, and Rin had to narrowly avoid the brunt of the spell. Despite his efforts, he noticed that the King of Lightning showed no visible signs of damage, which suggested that the barrier might be regenerating. Determined not to be deterred, Rin continued his assault on the barrier, aiming to weaken it further. He realized that if the barrier was indeed regenerating, he needed to intensify his attacks and find a way to exploit any openings in its defenses. He aimed to break through the barrier and deliver a decisive blow before the King of Lightning could fully restore its defenses. As Rin continued to battle the King of Lightning, he found himself increasingly overwhelmed. His appraisal skill revealed that the King of Lightning's level had risen to 25,000, a stark increase from its initial 20,000. The sheer scale of this battle was unlike anything he'd faced before. The King of Lightning's power was beyond what he had prepared for. The lightning strikes from the beast were relentless and devastating. Even a glancing hit from one of these strikes caused severe pain and drained nearly 1,000 of Rin's HP. The creature's speed made it nearly impossible for Rin to land a counterattack, and he quickly realized that his usual tactics were ineffective. In a desperate bid to escape, Rin considered using his dungeon teleportation skill. However, the King of Lightning's speed and relentless attacks left him with less than 0.8 seconds of safety needed to activate the teleportation. The thought of retreating to lower levels of the tower was quickly dismissed as unfeasible. Undeterred, Rin decided to press on and attempted another direct assault. As he dashed towards the King of Lightning and swung his sword, he was horrified to see that the lightning from the beast actually traveled through his weapon. The electrical energy struck him with full force, causing his HP to drop by another 3,000. The King of Lightning's defense and offense were proving to be overwhelmingly effective against Rin's strategies. The barrier around the beast, combined with its heightened level and powerful magic, made it clear that this final level was designed to push him beyond his limits. Rin felt the weight of the challenge and the potential impossibility of defeating the beast. Determined to overcome this challenge, Rin knew he needed a new strategy. He had to find a way to break through the King of Lightning's defenses, evade its powerful attacks, and somehow gain an advantage. Another attack had reduced his HP to less than half with a single strike, shattering his ring of Meru into pieces. With just one more hit, Rin would be doomed. Several of his bones were broken, leaving him barely able to move. Despite his dire situation, Rin was determined not to let this be his end. As the King of Lightning prepared to strike again, Rin somehow managed to evade the attack. Surprised by his own agility, he realized it was due to his newly acquired skill, Revitalize, which activated when his HP dropped to 30% or lower. With his HP around 20%, the Revitalize skill was providing a 50% boost. Although this boost saved his life, a new problem arose. He needed to figure out a plan quickly. Rin considered relying on the effects of Revitalize to attack the monster head-on with his enhanced strength and speed. However, he quickly dismissed the idea, realizing that repeatedly striking the barrier surrounding the monster would be a better strategy. Direct attacks would trigger the lightning counterattack, and with his remaining HP so low, it could drop to 0 in the blink of an eye. Though he hated to use it so soon, he knew he had no choice. He uncorked the bottle of Complete Recovery Potion, a bonus reward from a previous level, and drank it down. Miraculously, both his HP and MP were fully restored in an instant. But now he faced another dilemma. His opponent was surpassing him in every aspect, turning the battle into a predator-prey scenario. No matter what plan he devised, nothing seemed feasible. He didn't have a single weapon that could penetrate the beast's barrier and inflict damage. Suddenly, an idea clicked in his mind. It was a risky plan, and he wasn't sure if it would work, but he knew he only needed a brief moment to claim victory. Determined, Rin was willing to push beyond his limits and see his plan through. With his sword in hand, Rin dashed toward the King of Lightning, calculating that the power of an attack is determined by force multiplied by speed. At this moment, the relative velocity between him and the beast was at its peak, and he intended to use his own stats against the monster. Fully determined to end the fight, he swung his sword at the beast. But to his surprise, the next moment, the beast vanished. Before Rin could react, the beast reappeared above him, ready to strike. It landed directly on him, gripping his body in its claws and pinning him to the ground. His HP plummeted, and he knew that if he allowed the lightning to keep raining down on him, the damage would accumulate and he'd die without a chance to fight back. However, Rin had one more ace up his sleeve. Despite the onslaught of lightning attacks, he hadn't taken as much damage as it seemed, thanks to the complete recovery potion he had drunk earlier. While it was unexpected that his all-out attack had been deflected so easily, Rin had managed to create a situation where he would be trampled by the beast, and this, ultimately, was part of his plan. Now, he knew the beast wouldn't move and would wait for his HP to hit 0. But Rin wasn't planning to let that happen. Seeing Rin still alive, the beast grew frustrated, unable to comprehend why he hadn't died yet. But it was already too late. The time Rin needed to activate his plan had passed. He used his dungeon teleportation in a way he'd never attempted before. Instead of teleporting to safety, he teleported directly inside the beast's body. Meanwhile, Hannah was growing impatient, frustrated by how late her big brother was. It was the day of dungeon training, and she wanted him to come with her, but it seemed like he wasn't going to make it in time. Disappointed, she prepared to leave, leaving him a message on his phone before heading out. She was so angry that she resolved to complain a lot when he finally returned. Inside the beast, Rin was ready to end the fight. But the beast wasn't just any ordinary creature. It began attacking its own body from within, trying to expel Rin. The effects of the magic rebound medicine had already worn off, and Rin knew he couldn't afford to take any hits. He tore his way out of the monster by creating a massive hole in its stomach, but even that wasn't enough to kill it. The beast tried to pin him down again, but Rin managed to dodge the attack just in time. As he evaded, he aimed his sword at the beast's neck, determined to deliver a decisive blow. Rin noticed the monster's movements starting to slow down from the accumulated damage. Meanwhile, as Rin's HP dropped, his revitalized skill kicked in, accelerating his movements. The monster roared loudly, signaling a desperate, all-out attack, thrashing with its mouth and paws while completely neglecting its own defense. Rin seized the opportunity, leaping into the air above the monster's head and aiming for its vital spot on the top of its skull. His sword pierced through the monster's head, and it screamed in agony. After a few moments of struggle, the monster finally succumbed, leading to its defeat. The system notified Rin of a 1,232 level increase. The level 10 quest, the King of Lightning, had finally been completed, and as a clearance reward, his level increased by an additional 500. Rin could hardly believe it was over after so much struggle. He realized he had reached a milestone by surpassing level 10,000, but he knew this still didn't place him among the top rankers. The obstacle of time was apparent. Those who had the most time on their side naturally rose to the top, even as Rin was slowly clawing his way up. Despite clearing all the floors of the magic tower of isolation, Rin wondered if the only reward was a level increase. If that was the case, he found it pretty disappointing. As Rin pondered the rewards, the system's voice suddenly announced, "Extra Dungeon, Magic Tower of Isolation completed," confirming completion rewards. Rin listened intently as the system detailed the 3 rewards he had earned. The first reward was a skill named Battle Barrier, which allowed him to create a mana barrier around a target. The strength and duration of the barrier depended on the skill's level, with a cooldown of 60 seconds. Rin realized that this was the same skill the Lightning Beast had used against him. It was a powerful skill that aligned well with his combat style. The barrier completely blocked damage until it was broken, opening up the possibility of taking on dangerous missions with a new level of confidence. This reward greatly expanded his combat options. The second reward was based on the system's analysis of Rin's status as the Conqueror and the methods he used to complete the Magic Tower of Isolation. The system would grant him the most suitable item. After the analysis, the system classified him as a bloodless eater, a classification with an occurrence rate of only 0.1%. Something materialized in front of him, and as Rin reached out to touch it, he suddenly felt a sharp sensation, like a slap across his face. Startled, he wondered if this was some kind of system error. The system then announced, "Error detected. The conqueror has not met all conditions to receive the third reward. Therefore, the third reward cannot be granted." Rin was left in a state of confusion and frustration. He had fought so hard to reach this point, only to be denied the final reward due to an unmet condition he hadn't even been aware of. Rin was left feeling pretty frustrated. He had worked incredibly hard to reach this point, and now being denied a reward was truly disappointing. The system's voice echoed again, stating, "Since the conditions are not met, the conqueror will be granted a consolation reward. The consolation reward will be information about the dungeon. The conqueror will be analyzed and will automatically receive information deemed most valuable based on the analysis of the data." Rin knew that certain dungeon secrets were still unknown to others, like the Danger Crawler title and the true purpose of the Magic Tower of Isolation. However, there was still an overwhelming amount of unknown information about dungeons in general. For starters, what exactly were dungeons? Why were people given levels and skills? These were questions that had remained unanswered since dungeons first appeared 20 years ago. With this new, supposedly exclusive information about dungeons that no one else knew, Rin believed he might finally get a glimpse beyond the tip of the iceberg. The system's voice chimed in once more, saying, "Conqueror analysis completed. Consolation reward will be granted." A rectangular box appeared in front of Rin, looking like a hologram. He wondered what it was and what secrets it might hold. Meanwhile, Hannah arrived at the E-rank Smifka dungeon, where the dungeon training was scheduled to take place. Lost in her thoughts about the upcoming training, Hannah was suddenly interrupted by a cheerful voice greeting her with a good morning. It was Yanagi Ayang, a charming boy with kind eyes who was smiling warmly at her. He asked why she was alone today, and Hannah explained that her brother was out of town for a few days. However, he had taught her a lot in advance, so she felt confident she could manage on her own. Giri then announced that it was time to start the dungeon training. He informed the adventurers that, unlike the previous session, the monsters they would face this time were slightly stronger. However, he reassured them that both he and Yanagi would provide support and assist them if they encountered any dangerous situations. The adventurers lined up and began entering the dungeon one by one. On the third floor of the Smifka dungeon, their opponents were skeletons, monsters that could be easily defeated by those who had acquired their status. For this training exercise, everyone was required to face the skeletons without assistance, relying solely on their own skills and abilities. Hannah, unlike her previous self, was now brimming with confidence. She had once struggled to even hold a borrowed sword, but now she could swing it with ease, thanks to the status she had obtained. Although she didn't have any magic skills and needed to keep her skill imitation ability hidden, she chose a sword as her weapon, taking full advantage of her body strengthening skills. When it was finally her turn, along with the other adventurers in her row, Hannah dashed at the skeleton monster and quickly dispatched it without any assistance, handling it with surprising ease. But just as the group was catching their breath, a loud noise echoed through the dungeon. Everyone turned in shock to see a massive treant monster towering over them. Giri was astonished, wondering how a level 5000 monster could appear in an E-rank dungeon like this. Yanagi quickly stepped forward, saving an adventurer from the trent's growing branches. Giri also jumped into action, using his fire spear to block one of the branches and attempting to burn it down. However, to his surprise, the fire barely had any effect, despite treants being known for their weakness to fire. Panic spread among the junior adventurers as they realized the danger they were in. Yanagi turned to Giri and urgently told him to take everyone and escape, assuring him that he would handle the situation. The tension in the air was palpable as the adventurers realized they were facing a threat far beyond their capabilities. Giri refused to leave Yanagi behind alone, but Yanagi insisted, explaining that if they stayed, more monsters might show up. Given his speed, Yanagi was confident he could handle the Treant monster as long as he kept moving. After a moment of hesitation, Giri reluctantly agreed and instructed Yanagi to hold the monster off for 10 minutes, enough time for everyone else to reach the surface. Giri promised that once they were safe, Yanagi should retreat as well. Giri quickly informed the other adventurers of the plan, urging them to follow him to the surface. He assured them that he and Yanagi would do everything they could to protect them in this emergency. The group began to make their way toward the surface, with Hana among them. However, as they moved, a branch of the Treant monster suddenly grabbed Hana's feet, immobilizing her. She tried to call for help, but the monster's leaves wrapped around her mouth, muffling her cries. Panic surged within her as she struggled against the grip of the monstrous plant, unable to break free. Hana knew she had to follow the others or risk being left behind. As the Treant monster prepared to strike her, Yanagi suddenly appeared, saving her just in time. He quickly assessed the situation and realized it would be difficult for Hana to catch up with the evacuating group. Yanagi then asked her for a favor. He needed her to lend him her unique skill imitation, to help them both escape from this predicament. Hana was shocked that Yanagi knew about her secret skill. She hesitated, explaining that her skill could only copy level 1 abilities, and the effectiveness depended on her status, meaning it might not be that useful. But what surprised her more was how Yanagi had found out about her ability. Yanagi apologized, admitting that during the last training, he had used his enhanced intuition skills on the participants to prevent any potential dangers. In doing so, he overheard her using a concealment skill to hide her unique ability. He admitted that it was his fault for eavesdropping and assured her that he had no intention of causing trouble, which was why he had been quietly keeping an eye on her. Understanding his intentions, Hana replied with a more relaxed tone, saying that she understood the situation. However, she reiterated that her skill could only copy level 1 abilities and didn't transfer the full power of the skills she imitated. Yanagi, however, remained confident, assuring her that it wouldn't be a problem. Hana reluctantly agreed to let Yanagi copy her skill. They touched hands, and Yanagi instructed her to copy his bullet skill. As soon as their hands connected, the bullet skill was successfully copied by Hana. Yanagi explained that this skill's power was independent of the user's status, allowing Hana to determine the firepower based on the percentage of MP used. Since Yanagi had used 20% of his mana to fight the monster, Hana could potentially deal more damage using 100% of her mana. Though Hana was initially unsure if she could manage, she resolved to take responsibility and fight the monster. Yanagi warned her to be ready and wait for his signal. He then stepped forward and dashed towards the Treant monster, searching for the perfect moment to strike. When Yanagi gave the signal, Hana unleashed the bullet skill with all her mana. The powerful blast hit the Treant, dealing massive damage. The monster roared in agony and finally succumbed to the attack. With the Treant defeated, Hana's level increased by 452. Hana was taken aback by how easily her attack had defeated the powerful monster. However, an unsettling energy from Yanagi made her feel uneasy, though she dismissed it as her imagination. Yanagi's expression seemed off as he approached her, adding to her discomfort. Just then, Giri returned to the scene to retrieve Hana and Yanagi. He was astonished by Yanagi's ability to defeat such a high-level monster alone. Yanagi downplayed his own contribution, claiming that his magic had hardly made an impact and that Hana's unique skill was the real reason for their success. Hana was shocked when Yanagi revealed her secret skill so casually. Giri, unable to see the skill when he checked her status, was surprised by the revelation. He was about to question how Yanagi knew, but before he could, Yanagi's demeanor took a dark turn. With a disturbing smile, Yanagi admitted he should have asked for Hana's permission but dismissed it as inconsequential. He then turned to Giri, who was still bewildered by the situation. In a swift, shocking move, Yanagi drew his sword and drove it into Giri's heart. Giri gasped in shock and pain as he fell to the ground, and Yanagi stood over him, blood-stained sword in hand, wearing a sinister grin as he looked at Hana from a distance. Hana stood frozen in shock, unable to process the gruesome scene unfolding before her. Giri, with disbelief and agony in his eyes, demanded to know Yanagi's motives. Yanagi, unperturbed and shameless, met Giri's gaze and mockingly questioned if his most powerful skill was advanced magic. He dismissed it as insignificant, revealing his true intent. He had killed Giri to steal his skill. As Giri's consciousness faded and his body fell lifeless to the ground, darkness enveloped the scene for Hana. She was paralyzed by the horror of witnessing a murder and unable to act. Yanagi, displaying a chilling indifference, blamed Giri for his own death, accusing him of failing to stay above ground. Turning his attention to Hana, Yanagi's face twisted into a creepy smile. He coldly informed her that she, too, needed to die. Hana, bewildered and desperate, asked why he wanted to kill her, questioning if she had done something to warrant such a fate. Yanagi's response was cold and devoid of empathy as he revealed his true intentions, further deepening Hana's terror and confusion. Yanagi's expression remained chillingly calm as he explained his motives. He revealed that he had no personal hatred toward Hana. Rather, he was grateful for her unique skill, copy, which was ideal for his own purposes. Hana, still reeling from the shock, demanded to know what he meant. Yanagi took pleasure in the macabre conversation, making it clear that he was indeed the type of villain one would despise. He disclosed his own unique skill, plunder, which allowed him to steal one skill from anyone he killed. Hana's eyes widened in realization as Yanagi explained that he had orchestrated the entire situation to isolate her and be the only one left behind, ensuring that he could kill her and acquire her copy skill. Hana's desperation grew as she shouted at Yanagi, demanding to know if he was the one who had brought the Treant monster into the dungeon. Yanagi confirmed her fears, admitting that his unique skill, Tamer, was responsible for summoning the monster. He had obtained this skill by killing its previous holder, and he took pride in his new title as Tamer. Pointing at Hana, Yanagi declared that she had been chosen as the target for his plunder skill. He made it clear that this decision was irrevocable unless both the target and the activator agreed to change it. Hana's realization of her grim fate sank in as she faced the horrifying truth of Yanagi's intentions. With his preparations complete, Yanagi was able to target those he had been in direct contact with. Hana, terrified for her life, began to flee. Her mind was consumed solely by the need to survive and escape. Standing calmly, Yanagi commanded the Treant monster to capture her, and thanks to his Tamer skill, the Treant obeyed. In a state of panic, Hana used the bullet skill she had copied earlier to destroy the Treant. This surprised Yanagi, who had expected her MP to be depleted. He realized she had likely used the MP she gained from leveling up. As Hana attempted to escape after dispatching the monster, Yanagi suddenly appeared in front of her, moving with incredible speed. He struck her with such force that she was thrown to the ground, her MP halved by the blow. She knew that another hit like that would surely be fatal. Seeing that Hana could endure his attack, Yanagi decided to test another skill. With Giri's advanced magic at his disposal, he conjured a massive fireball in his hand. Hana, trembling on the ground, was gripped by sheer terror. The thought of death overwhelmed her, and her life flashed before her eyes. She recalled the tragic news of her parents' deaths while they were traveling abroad. An unidentified dungeon had appeared on a deserted island, causing a plane crash. The plane was attacked by creatures from the dungeon, and all passengers were lost. Although the bodies were never found and they were deemed missing, Hana, even at a young age, knew the truth. As she wept, she remembered Rin's unwavering support. He had held her hand through her grief and always been there for her. Hana wanted to thank him deeply for his support, but she also harbored a regret. She wondered if her constant crying had prevented Rin from grieving properly. She wished she could apologize to him, but now it seemed it was too late. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered her apology to her brother. Suddenly, Hana's gaze fell upon her ribbon on the ground, which had slipped off earlier. The sight triggered a poignant memory from her past. It was the first time she had ventured outside her room after the incident. As she approached Rin to apologize, he greeted her with a warm smile. He tied a beautiful ribbon in her hair, A gift he said was for his little sister. He offered her the chance to tie it herself if she didn't like it, but she happily accepted, saying she loved it. Hannah had wanted to apologize, but Rin understood and reassured her. He told her that big brothers are supposed to protect their sisters and that he would never resent her for relying on him. He wanted her to continue depending on him whenever she was sad or facing difficulties. He promised that if he wasn't strong enough to protect her, he would become stronger until he could. Holding the ribbon now, Hannah remembered Rin's words with a heavy heart. Facing Yanagi, who was poised to strike, she knew she couldn't escape or survive the attack. All she could do was place her trust in her brother, as he had always asked. Summoning her courage, she shouted his name, pleading for his help. To her immense relief, a familiar, soothing voice responded. As she opened her eyes, she was overjoyed to see Rin standing in front of Yanagi, acting as a shield for her. With a gentle smile, Rin looked back at Hannah, his presence a comforting reminder that he was still there for her. Rin turned to Yanagi with a steely gaze and demanded if he truly intended to kill Hannah. Yanagi, with an evil smirk, confirmed that he planned to kill her and steal her unique skill, as it was necessary to fulfill his conditions. Rin's frustration grew, and he ordered the Treant monster to awaken once more. Hannah realized that despite using the bullet skill, she hadn't leveled up, indicating she was still lacking in power. Yanagi then commanded the monster to kill both siblings. Hannah was terrified, but Rin remained calm and unfazed by the threats. As the monster prepared to strike Rin, Hannah cried out for him to be careful, knowing that her brother's level was insufficient to withstand such an attack. However, Rin merely tilted his head slightly, nonchalantly waving his hand to brush aside the attack. The monster was instantly blasted into tiny pieces, leaving both Yanagi and Hannah in shock. Rin fixed Yanagi with a piercing stare, as if looking straight into his soul, and declared that he would defeat him right there and then. Hannah, watching from behind, couldn't comprehend how Rin had managed to defeat the monster with just a simple hand movement. She remembered when Rin lent her the conceal skill. He had never explained his reasons, but now she understood. He had been using conceal to hide his true abilities from prying eyes. However, she still struggled to grasp why he would go to such lengths. Yanagi burst into hysterical laughter, clearly amused. He admitted he hadn't expected Rin to defeat the monster with a single move, given that his level was only 5,000. Rin, confused, asked if Yanagi had ever mentioned knowing his level. Yanagi smirked, revealing that his unique skill, Plunderer, allowed him to see the level of anyone he touched. Since they had shaken hands earlier, this condition had been met. Yanagi then realized that Rin was also concealing his true powers intentionally, just as he had his own skills that he couldn't let others discover. Since then, Yanagi had planned to take all of Rin's skills for himself, but he was disappointed to learn he wouldn't be able to kill Hannah while Rin was present. To his surprise, Rin appeared on his own. Yanagi decided to kill Rin first, as it would be troublesome to eliminate Hannah with Rin in the way. He used his Plunderer skill to change his target, which required the consent of the person initially selected. Yanagi asked Hannah to give her consent, but she refused, unwilling to betray her brother. Rin turned to her and encouraged her to give her consent, assuring her that everything would be fine and urging her to trust him. After a moment of hesitation, Hannah reluctantly agreed and gave her consent. The voice echoed, announcing that Hannah had been released from the Plunderer's target, and that Rin had been selected as the new target. This decision was final unless both the target and the activator consented otherwise. Rin now understood how the Plunderer skill operated and realized that with the target shifted to him, Yanagi would no longer pursue Hannah. With Yanagi's focus now solely on him, Rin felt that this change would make the battle more manageable. He was determined to defeat Yanagi with his own strength. Yanagi, however, mocked Rin for his decision to put himself in danger instead of saving his sister. With a condescending tone, he dismissed Rin's chances, declaring that he was doomed to fail against him. Yanagi, using his tamer skill, summoned a host of formidable monsters, an Orc King, a Salamander, and a King Ice Wolf. Rin, assessing the situation with his appraisal skill, realized these creatures were typically recommended for subjugation by adventurers with levels over 10,000. He was baffled by how Yanagi could command such powerful monsters. Yanagi, with a smirk, explained that these monsters were under his tamer skills' influence, which allowed him to summon creatures whose levels were lower than his own. When Rin questioned how Yanagi, with a level of just 5,000, could summon monsters above 10,000, Yanagi confirmed that he was indeed using a concealment skill to mask his true level. Yanagi laughed, revealing that his real level exceeded 10,000, and that he possessed several powerful skills acquired through his plunder ability. He boasted that his power was unmatched within his level range. With a taunting gesture, Yanagi pointed his sword at Rin and declared that Rin had no chance of defeating him and would not escape alive. Yanagi, desperate and furious, ordered all his summoned monsters to attack Rin simultaneously. With a calm demeanor, Rin called forth his swords, Nameless and Greed, and readied himself for the onslaught. His attack speed was so rapid that Yanagi couldn't even track his movements with the naked eye. Yanagi was confident that the combined offensive magic, capable of overwhelming even adventurers at level 10,000, would leave Rin with no chance of survival. However, after the storm of magic attacks, Yanagi was stunned to see that Rin was completely unscathed. There wasn't even a speck of dust on his clothes. Yanagi couldn't believe what he was witnessing. He wondered if Rin had used some kind of resistance technique or physical counter, but nothing made sense. Desperate to break Rin's momentum, Yanagi ordered the Orc King to step forward and attack. The Orc King, moving with blinding speed, struck at Rin, and Yanagi was certain that Rin couldn't possibly dodge such an attack. But to his shock, Rin effortlessly evaded the strike and, with a single fluid motion, began to dismantle the high-level monsters one by one. Each swing of Rin's sword seemed effortless, as if defeating these powerful creatures was nothing more than child's play. Yanagi's confidence began to crumble, and a cold fear gripped his heart as he realized that Rin might actually be able to kill him. His eyes locked onto Rin's sword, which glowed with the colors of ruby, rose, sapphire, and amber. Suddenly, the sword became engulfed in flames, and with a swift strike, it slashed across Yanagi's shoulder. As Yanagi staggered back, he noticed that the vibrant colors on Rin's sword had faded, leaving him in disbelief and pain. Yanagi's mind raced as he realized what had just happened. The magic that had disappeared earlier was actually absorbed and then released from Rin's dagger. The truth dawned on him. The sword in Rin's hand was a plundered weapon, and this was a battle between a plunderer and the plunderer's sword. Rin pointed his short sword at Yanagi, commanding it to devour everything in its path. This was no ordinary weapon. It was a magic-stealing sword, a reward given to those who had conquered the magic tower of isolation. The blade had the ability to absorb magic when struck by it, by paying the equivalent MP cost. The absorbed magic could then be unleashed without any additional cost. Both warriors stood facing each other, swords drawn and ready. Rin decided to switch his nameless sword for his speed sword, a short sword forged with a blacksmith skill. With a recommended level of 6,000 to equip, Rin had noticed that when he slashed at Yanagi earlier, nameless special effects hadn't activated, giving him a rough estimate of Yanagi's level, likely between 10,000 and 13,000. However, Yanagi's speed was what truly concerned Rin, as nameless required excessive movement to be effective. He realized that attack power alone wouldn't determine the outcome of this battle. Speed would. Yanagi could also sense Rin's incredible speed and the weight behind each of his attacks. As their blades clashed, it became increasingly clear to Yanagi that Rin's physical strength surpassed his own. But Yanagi, fueled by pride and desperation, refused to accept this reality. He couldn't fathom being overpowered, especially by someone he had underestimated from the start. Yanagi was in disbelief. The last time he faced Rin, his level was only around 5,000, but now, in such a short period, Rin had more than doubled his level. It was something that seemed impossible under normal circumstances. Panic set in as Yanagi realized that if this continued, he would be defeated. The real problem was Rin's dagger. Out of all the skills Yanagi had acquired through plunder, more than half were magic-based, and as long as Rin wielded that dagger, Not only would his magic attacks be ineffective, but Rin could also absorb them and turn them against him. The dagger defied common sense, but Yanagi knew that if he could avoid using magic, he might find an opening to counterattack. As Yanagi tried to strategize, Rin continued his relentless assault with the dagger. No matter how much Yanagi tried to understand Rin's power, it made no sense. His ribs were broken, and his body was betraying him. He began to wonder if he was really going to lose to Rin. Desperate, Yanagi decided to gamble everything he had left. He activated his one-winged flight skill, which granted him a 60% speed boost, but at a steep cost. His HP would decrease by 1% per second. This unique skill had severe drawbacks, which was why he had avoided using it until now. But facing death, he had no choice. Rin was momentarily taken aback by Yanagi's sudden increase in speed, but quickly regained his composure. In response, he created a defensive wall around his body, determined not to give Yanagi any openings. Yanagi, equally determined not to lose, tried to provoke Rin, mocking him by saying that he could only defend and lacked the guts to attack. Despite the provocation, Rin remained calm and focused. Yanagi's desperation was evident, and Rin knew that patience and precision would be his greatest assets in this battle. Yanagi's reckless speed was both his strength and his weakness, and Rin was prepared to exploit any mistake. Yanagi relentlessly attacked Rin, hoping to break through the defensive barrier surrounding him. To his surprise, he noticed a small crack forming in the barrier. Excitement surged through him as he realized he might be able to shatter it with his next blow. However, just as he prepared to strike, Rin suddenly released the barrier and launched a swift, precise attack with his sword, leaving Yanagi with no time to react or dodge. Despite the unexpected counterattack, Yanagi remained confident that he could still defeat Rin with one more strike. He dashed toward Rin, but as he closed in, doubt began to creep into his mind. Rin wasn't moving. He just stood there, completely still. What unnerved Yanagi the most was Rin's eyes. They were cold and expressionless, staring directly at him as if peering into his very soul. Rin, on the other hand, acknowledged Yanagi's strength, but recognized that his opponent had made a critical error. Yanagi had underestimated Rin's true capabilities because he was unaware of the true nature of Rin's unique skill. That miscalculation would be his downfall. In an instant, Rin activated his dungeon teleportation skill, vanishing from sight. He reappeared in different positions around Yanagi, striking from all directions with blinding speed. Yanagi was overwhelmed, barely able to keep up with the rapid onslaught. For the first time, he witnessed the true power of Rin, an unstoppable force that attacked with precision and speed that far exceeded anything Yanagi had anticipated. As Rin's relentless assault continued, Yanagi began to realize that he was completely outmatched. The confidence he once held crumbled as the truth sank in. Yanagi desperately relied on his enemy search skill, trying to predict where Rin would appear next. He knew he had less than a tenth of a second after each teleport to avoid a fatal blow. His mind raced as he tried to devise a strategy to turn the tide, believing that if he could just force Rin to use the last of his stolen magic, he might have a chance. But Rin's relentless assault showed no signs of stopping. Suddenly, Rin unleashed a powerful lightning spell, and Yanagi felt a surge of hope. He thought his plan had worked, that he had successfully baited Rin into using his last bit of magic. Yanagi was certain that Rin was now out of tricks. However, Rin wasn't finished yet. Instead of letting Yanagi's confidence grow, Rin activated his Time Zero teleportation, an advanced skill that allowed him to move instantaneously without any delay. Yanagi, assuming Rin would teleport behind him as before, mocked him for being predictable. But when Yanagi turned around, he was shocked to find Rin standing directly in front of him, not behind. Yanagi was completely caught off guard as the lightning attack struck him with full force. His HP plummeted rapidly, as if it were the ratings of a poorly received show. Panic set in as Yanagi realized he had miscalculated again. He couldn't comprehend how Rin still had magic left after everything he had thrown at him. The truth dawned on him too late. Rin's power was far beyond what Yanagi had anticipated. Rin had been holding back, strategically using his skills to lure Yanagi into a false sense of security. And now, with no more tricks left to play, Yanagi faced the grim reality that he was no match for Rin. Yanagi's mind raced as he realized the extent of Rin's capabilities. It dawned on him that Rin had been using his teleportation not just for offense, but to strategically absorb and counter Yanagi's magic. Rin's physical abilities, weapons, skills, and even his intellect far surpassed Yanagi's own. With a sinking heart, Yanagi finally acknowledged that a main Rin was indeed stronger than him. But Yanagi wasn't one to go down without a fight, as Rin's focus was entirely on him. Yanagi seized the moment and threw a dagger aimed directly at Hana, who was standing behind her brother. His goal had shifted. If he couldn't kill Hana and steal her skill, he would at least kill Rin. Yanagi banked on the certainty that Rin wouldn't let his sister die and would use his teleportation to shield her. In that split second, Yanagi planned to deliver a fatal blow to Rin. But Rin defied his expectations. Instead of teleporting to protect Hana, Rin appeared right in front of Yanagi, blocking his path. Confusion and frustration clouded Yanagi's mind. How could Rin abandon his little sister? As he looked closer, Yanagi noticed something he hadn't before. Hana was surrounded by the same barrier that Rin had used to protect himself earlier. Yanagi, in a fit of rage and desperation, dashed at Rin, hoping to land a decisive blow. But Rin was ready. With a swift, precise movement, Rin targeted Yanagi's hand, slashing it with his sword. The impact was brutal, severing Yanagi's hand and rendering him incapable of wielding his weapon. Yanagi stumbled back, clutching the stump where his hand once was, his eyes wide with shock and fear. Rin's calm, composed demeanor only made the situation more terrifying for him. For the first time, Yanagi felt the full weight of his impending defeat. Rin's voice was filled with hatred as he coldly reminded Yanagi that he should never have laid a hand on his little sister, vowing never to forgive him for that mistake. With a decisive strike, Rin drove his sword into Yanagi's chest, delivering a fatal blow. Yanagi collapsed to the ground, blood pouring from his wounds, as he realized he was unable to move. His consciousness began to slip away as the bitter truth of his defeat sank in. He had never anticipated losing to Rin. Until the very end, he believed Rin was within his grasp. But Rin had used everything at his disposal: magic-stealing swords, invisible barriers, and teleportation to corner him, ultimately stabbing him in the heart without hesitation. As Yanagi looked up at Rin's cold, unfeeling eyes, he asked with a weak voice if Rin had ever killed anyone before. Rin, expressionless, replied that this was his first. Yanagi managed to smirk, acknowledging that Rin must be a real monster. He recalled the first time he had taken a life. His hands had trembled as he gripped the knife, and even though it was in self-defense, the weight of taking a life had nearly crushed him. But now, it was clear that Rin was in a completely different league. With that final thought, Yanagi took his last breath, his lifeless body falling to the ground in defeat as Rin stood tall, victorious.